Welcome to the Hawks Nest stream show. My name is Brendan Kane, and I do appreciate you for watching this wonderful Wednesday afternoon on the edge of Christmas. Merry Christmas to all out there. I hope you have a great one this upcoming week. But we got some football action on the horizon. A very important game for your Seahawks. Almost a feeling of a win or go home kind of situation, whereas it is maybe not mathematically that. It feels very close to that. And it's going to be a tough team coming to town with Minnesota Vikings, who they themselves are still playing for more than just a little bit, as they are a bit of a dark horse candidate. They're still with their sights on that number one seed here in a very competitive NFC. But today, we're going to take a look at our Seahawks weekly roundup. This is a show on Wednesday dedicated to looking back at the prior week, a little bit as much as we can force ourselves to look at that prior game, and just any kind of news that might have slipped between the cracks and things that we want to kind of be considering that are maybe at the forefront as far as Seahawks, not just news, but also some of the stuff that things are really being talked about, I think, there in mass across the Seahawks fandom hemisphere, if you will. With that said, let's kick this off right at the start, because we got a lot to get into as always on these Wednesday shows. Please hit that like button if you could on the way in the door. I would really appreciate that. It helps the channel out tremendously. We got an update first and foremost on the Geno Smith news. He was feeling pretty good at walkthroughs here today, so it would seem like he's bounced back pretty well off the injury, no structural damage. Then I think that we can say, okay, he's going to play. That's great news. Because, of course, as we learned last week with Sam Howell, it was not good news. And Sam was definitely not ready to play. And some, I think, have tried to that are, I think, still somewhat of Howell believers out there, have still tried to paint this a little bit in the way of, it's just first game. He just wasn't ready. It's not his first rodeo here as a third-year guy here. He's not a rookie. And I think this does kind of really, as we could go into looking at the stats, what he did and how he played and all that, this really does break it down, I think. Sam Howell had 5 net yards versus the Packers. That is the 9th worst game by a quarterback with 15-plus dropbacks in any game since 2000. That ranks 13,004 out of 13,012. So let's not dress up what it was and where it was at and how bad it was. And is it all his fault? No. And are there some of the same things he was dealing with that Geno's dealing with? And we can get in all of that conversation if we want. But at the end of the day, it was not a good performance. And Sam, it didn't say not good. It was also really bad to the point of jostling in the way of making you go, okay, we got to maybe look at something else here. Whatever we're doing with quarterback one, or whether this guy's going to be part of that competition battle with whoever we bring in with quarterback one this offseason, we might have to relook at that a little bit, whether or not this guy really has that in him to do this, because that was horrible. And I understand that, it's a new offense for him and that bad offensive line, but that's that 13,004 out of 13,012 since the year of 2000. That's pretty bad. Keeping it going here, though, we do look like we are getting Geno back, so that is very encouraging news. The one problem, of course, with Geno coming back, and one of the center points of discussion here recently, has been Geno's proclivity for throwing interceptions in the red zone. He's got 4 of them on the season. That leads the NFL. It's been a very poor part of his game, one we've been looking for him to rectify, yet we keep having to come back to this over and over and over again throughout the course of this season. He's only thrown 4 when the final totals are that, but it feels like 12. And you go, boy, okay, is this a bit of an inherent issue in his game as a center point of his game? Is this something to where he's got it like a flu-like symptoms of red zone interceptions, and it's just always going to be something he has to carry with him for the rest of his life? I don't tend to think so. And I tend to think a lot of this comes down and from him trying to be more of a Superman in these moments and pressing a little bit too hard. Game like this where he feels like they've got to start scoring some points. The defense is struggling a little bit, does a little bit too much. Quite frankly, in this game, offensively and defensively, there were times where you had plays blow up because guys were doing too much. They weren't just sticking within the plan and trusting their teammates to get it done. And that was certainly, again, the case on that throw in this game. You've got, though, when you look at Geno here since 2021, he's actually been very safe inside the red zone. So this stat here on my left shows us a little bit. 2021, he had 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. He had 2 touchdowns and 1 interception outside the red zone. Inside the red zone, he had 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. 2022, outside the red zone, he had 13 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Inside the red zone, 17 touchdowns, no interceptions. 2023, he had 4 touchdowns outside of the red zone, 7 interceptions. Inside the red zone, he had 16 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That brings us to this year. Outside the red zone, 6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Inside, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So he's definitely not had this penchant in the past in falling into this, which would lead me to believe that it is a correctable issue and situation. And if it hasn't been fully addressed with him by the coaching staff at this point, God, I hope they have now. Please do now. But it doesn't seem to be some part of his game that's broken at the core that just can't be fixed or overcome, or that this is what we've been facing for now the past 3 years prior to this. This is an issue that has just propped up this year. For me, when you pull on the thread and backtrack it, it seems like you can really go back to it being more of him trying to do too much in what is a really tough situation for the quarterback position, and he's not making the best choice. It's not me forgiving him or overlooking it or saying that this isn't something to consider carrying forward, but you always want to look at this stuff beyond just a sample size of a 1-year point if you've got multiple years to look at with a given player like Geno Smith. And I think that you could make the argument here that over the past 4 years, that right now this offensive line, and this is saying something, is in as bad a shape as we have seen at any point in time since Geno's taken over. And so that's only going to cause more chaos, more disarray, more poor quarterback decisions in that chaos, I think, be it whether it is Geno or a Sam Howell or anybody else. As I've said, whoever you put into this kind of environment is going to find that it's going to be very close to a catastrophe every single time. But I don't think that it is inherently a part of Geno's game inside of his soul that he just can't find a way through. Keeping it moving here, another point of discussion. This one has definitely been getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. You had now getting to the point where you've got Pat McAfee talking about this with Aaron Rodgers on his show, and Rodgers noting the Go Pack Go chants in the stadium, and how tough this is to see. Yeah, how tough this is to see. And then I think it was DK Metcalf today, was saying, man, it sucks that all those Seahawks fans sold their tickets to Packer fans in the stadium. And I don't ever see any of these people come into my chat who own up to selling their tickets. And, if you are one of those people out there that are doing it, there's a lot of reasons for this going in the direction it's going as far as the quieting of the stadium, the dimming of the 12th man light. There's a lot of reasons. The high ticket prices, the lack of maybe the team truly going on any kind of contending run over the last few years. But this is another one where season ticket holders with dollar signs in their eyes, because that's what I think it really is. You can't sell me on this, well, it's just the team isn't good enough to watch, so I just decide on those tickets I'm going to sell them. Yeah, sure. Is that why you're selling them in these keynote games where, like this Packer game or the Buffalo Bill game, where you're in the thick of it? Those are good teams. That should be a good game to watch on the surface of it. But you're not being driven by the whole part of the team being good or not. I've not really ever bought into that, quite frankly. It is that they want to make their money. They want their tickets paid for. So you have a dying tradition at the doorstep of greed. And not even necessarily the greed that we can pass off to ownership. The ownership's greed factors into this because they won't do anything to change it. The NFL won't do anything to change it. They'll allow it because from their standpoint, it's season tickets being sold, and that's all they care about. They don't care what butt fills the seat. But the main responsibility on this one does go back to that fan who sells their ticket. You are killing this tradition. You are going to be one of the centerpiece points when they look back at it 20, 30 years from going, why did the 12 start getting so quiet? What was that stadium like? Oh, you don't know. People like me, you don't know what it was like in there. Let me tell you. So I hope the extra couple of ducats in your pocket make you feel so much better. Hope you go get your little extra, whatever you do with it. Because it's happening at don't make no mistake about it. Don't excuse away your own behavior. Don't call it into something else than it isn't. It's you standing at the forefront, tip of the spear, and putting this thing to rest. And it's sad to see. It's sad to see such wide acknowledgement of it. It's gotten to this point of it. But don't dance away from your own responsibility from within it. No, it was on you. No, it was on you. And you got a choice to make going forward. You can keep up this stuff and let it dim further and further, or you can start to recognize it. Sure thought people would start to maybe get a feel for this after the Buffalo game. Sure thought maybe people would get a little bit of a feel for it when you're on prime time with your team in first place. But evidently the messaging ain't clicking in with them. And I just come back to, I just think they don't care. If they don't, then I guess maybe I shouldn't on that. But it was a great tradition while it lasted, I'll say that. And it sucks to see it go out the door because of this. It'd even be nice to be able to say that it's going away because of just the owner's greed or just the NFL being dumb. Can't do just that, though. And I understand it's a problem that's going on league-wide. But just because it's happening everywhere else doesn't mean it should be happening here. Especially with what was built prior to it from the tradition standpoint of things. But I'm done ranting on it. All right, let's get on here a little bit to some of our segments today, if we can. Keep it moving here, and we'll start off with our first kicker on this one, which is going to be looking at the PFF grades of the week. Take yourself a shot, grab yourself a beer. These are not necessarily going to be very pretty. And starting it off, let's go with the defense before we get to more of the brutal offensive side of it. In this game, Boye Mafe led the way for you with an 80 PFF grade. And I had thought with Boye Mafe, he would, take a little bit of the snaps backwards a little bit on this with, with the amount of, with Uchenna Nwosu coming back. But what seems weird with me here is that they definitely dialed back with his 22 snaps and Draymond Jones's 25 snaps. They dialed back a little bit of their usage, but Derek Hall still stood up there at 36 snaps. And Derek Hall has not been playing particularly well recently, as he did not play well in this game once again. And so a little bit of a head scratcher. I might start trying to offload the Hall snaps and run with the two guys who led the way with you on PFF scores a little bit more than that. Hall's, I know a lot of you don't love where Draymond Jones has been at, but I think as the season's wore on, he might, as this year really finishes out, end up having a better overall year than Derek Hall, who has gone pretty much quiet at this point in these games. Just not doing a lot. The film batches this up. There's plays where he overran a play on the Ernest Jones fumble. I'll show you in a second. He overruns the play. It's one of those plays I just talked about a second ago where sometimes the players are doing a little bit too much on tape, not just sticking to the responsibility, especially on defense in this past game. Jaron Reed, 59.8. I mean, only three guys at the top: Leonard Williams, Draymond Jones, Boye Mafe. Everyone else was pretty much below the mark. Understandable why. Tyrese Knight, rookie, had a little bit of a downward performance in this one. He struggled just a little bit, and maybe hitting a little bit of that rookie wall. I don't know, but just, definitely didn't have his best game. Tariq Woolen absolutely did not have his best game. That was rough to watch out there with him. Josh Jobs got picked on as well. So, variety of guys weren't able to turn in a very good performance. Uchenna coming back from the injury, 50.1. You'd like to see better, but it was one of those games. Jackson Smith and Jigba, no shocker here, leading the way for you with the Hawks. Receiving wise, Charles Cross. I know we moan a lot about this offensive line, but I think overall we have solid footing, at least as far as the left tackle position goes. So it is not starting from scratch. Abraham Lucas was able in this game to bounce back with a better performance than he's been at here in the last couple of weeks, at least by PFF's measure. Zach Charbonnet, strong game. Gino, he was okay. And then we get down to kind of the middle of the road guys. To the bottom of the guys, Sam Howell. No shocker here. When you have the kind of performance he had there with those attempts and an interception, you're going to be lowly rated, 26.9. Sa'atoa had his worst game, a 1.6 pass protecting grade for Sa'atoa Lamea. And I didn't know it goes that low, I didn't know it goes that low. That's what I feel like looking at that score. I didn't know they could be down there, but he had 11 pressures alone given up in this game in pass protection. He's a little ahead of he's in a good spot as far as his run blocking goes, but in pass pro, especially right now, he's certainly a guy that could benefit from having some more under center stuff, play action kind of stuff that he's able to work around, because he struggled in this game quite a bit. quite a bit. AJ Barner, not the best of games from him. Laken Tomlinson, another in the 2 guard positions right now, just in brutal shape. Sundell, not too bad for coming out and starting his first start with 54, but not a good grade. So your interior offensive line was just in horrible shape throughout the course of this game. No kind of two ways about it. Show the special teams score. Farrell Brown, Patrick O'Connell, Josh Rosher, linebacker, Derek Young, Julian Love all were well graded in this game on that side of it. Myers, 69.4. I never know how they exactly come to these scores. Dixon had 3 punts inside the 20, but he's a 58.4. So yeah, make the special team scores make sense to me. All right, let's keep it moving here, and we're going to go on to our next segment, which is the one where I've taken this from an old ESPN runner, which is a come on man segment. I meant to look back at the game, a little bit of maybe a boneheaded moment in the game where you're wondering, what were you thinking? There's going to be plays where things go wrong and things go good, and other plays where a guy completely has something to get upended and he could have seen it coming or been thinking about it, or what was he thinking in that moment? And our play today is going to be the man I just spoke about a second ago, Riq Woolen. At the end of half, Riq Woolen is matched up in press coverage. There are 10 seconds left to go in this football game. The Packers are at the 39-yard line. The Packers have one play that they can run here before they got to come out and bring out the field goal unit. Everything in your head as a cornerback here, whether you're in press or not, needs to be telling you to stay on top. Needs to make you understand the fact that there's no help over the top, or that you obviously don't have a lot of help here. Maybe the safety blows it and the safety was supposed to be there providing help, being a Julian Love. But you've got to stay on top here. And for a guy that's supposed to be 4.26 here, he almost looks slow catching up, which I've seen a couple of times this year, like with Robinson on the Rams at the end of the game, where he couldn't catch back up with that speed out of press, which is, it makes me wonder right now, is he still at that same speed? Has he lost a little bit? Like, this is the thing you're supposed to kind of be able to do. But even if you can't do it, which is weird to me, you've got to get back up on top of that post snap. And he just kind of gets slow to get his feet moving, opens this up over the top for what could have been just an absolute backbreaker of a moment in this game that didn't have to happen. You know how the Packers are going to attack. You know where they're going to attack on the field. Play to that leverage. Instead, he seems to get totally caught off guard. I don't quite understand it, and that's why this is my come on, man moment of the game. Situationally, not aware. Seen that a couple times from this team. A little bit of the youthfulness, I think, showing out. But in a moment like that with Riq Woolen, who's been on my Come On Man segment a couple times this year, come on. Think about where we're at in the game. Think about what's going on. Think about how they're attacking you. Don't just be out there reacting. And that's a little bit of what it feels like with Woolen time and time again. Like, there's not a lot of film study. I'm just kind of reacting to what I'm seeing out there. I'm just leaning on that athleticism, leaning on that speed. That's not enough to get by even when you're as gifted as he is as a player. All right, keeping it going. And every week, and I'll tell you, I had to pull pretty hard on this week to find anything that was going to work on this week. But every week there is some play that stands out that's a little bit better than the others. One that just hits you a little bit different, one that you like a little bit different. That's why I call this segment that play call that hits just a little bit different.
This one hit different.
And today we're going to be looking at a play here that was probably best offensive play on the game. And again, there wasn't a lot on either side of the ball to look at in this game when looking at really great play calls. Defensively, you stayed in a lot of four-man fronts. Offensively, you were searching like you were in the darkness, just trying to find that light, that flashlight that you had under the bed. Isn't it under the bed? Why isn't it under the bed? Where's it? Isn't it in the cupboard? Why isn't it in the cupboard? Who took the flashlight? I can't see anything. That was pretty much your offense in this game. But this was a play where you're actually able to catch them off guard. And how you did it was 2nd and 6. You're down in this game by quite a bit. So the Packers are thinking 100% that this is going to be pass. Too high shell that stays too high shell post snap. A lot of guys dropping into coverage to the deep side of the field, to the wide side of the field here. And the Seahawks have the perfect game plan set up for this particular coverage they've set up, where there is no thought in what the Packers are doing here pre-snap to the Seahawks running the football. It's in many ways a play that almost shouldn't work, but it's working so well because you're catching them so off guard. And you're catching them with the numbers game. You're seeing the gap scheme brought back into play like we saw last week, where they were really utilizing that against the Cardinals fully and really making it work. Sundell, your new center there out in front, he's able to move and make that happen. But where it really starts from is you've got all these defenders, 4 defenders of the Packers to the left side, the far side of the field. And then you've got your 2 guys here to the short side of the field for the Seahawks. So when you pull the 2 extra guys in space back behind these 2 guys at the front, you're essentially getting 4 men out in space there for Charbonnet. And if the Packers don't get that extra guy to rally from this side of the field over, you've got your numbers game, you've got your alleyway there for Zach Charbonnet to run, and then he doesn't have to do a whole lot other than get there with some urgency. He sets up the blocks and then just sets it up enough with that backside guy to where he keeps the door open, so when he wants to cut it to the outside, he can do so. But a very good game plan here, but a very good play call here from Grubb. Going to the run game, you're down in this game, understand that, but you also have a lot of confidence when you go to this that you're anticipating. I'm very sure that what he saw from the Packers coverage was a lot of that soft coverage here throughout most of this game, prior to this especially. And when I know they're going to be that in again, I go to this game plan. If we block it even halfway decently right, it's going to be a big gain. And notice here, when you watch this play and I pause it, watch how these are just really pin blocks. So your tight end right here, pin. Then we get JSN coming down here. He's going to pin. Then you get your 2 offensive linemen out to neutralize this guy here and to pull out around and then to neutralize the safety down here. So then you got your offensive linemen then on cornerbacks, defensive backs. But it's really pin blocks. Nobody here is having to drive anybody off the line of scrimmage. This is the beauty sometimes of the spread system when it's running right. The backside here, you've got these guys setting up like it's pass pro to make the defensive linemen think it's pass pro, so they're just out of the play by that manner. You don't need them to get any push up the field. The play's attacking way up here, so you don't care. So kind of a cool little play as well, because it shows there's plays you can call in the NFL, especially these pin kind of blocks. Your tight end there's not blowing him off the line, right? He's even getting a little bit of penetration. But because he's going wide, he doesn't have to land the block for a long period of time. He's just got to sink it in there for just about a second or so to let Charbonnet get clear, and it's done. Same thing here with JSN coming down from the wide receiver position to the linebacker. Doesn't have to necessarily destroy the block. In a lot of ways, gets kind of blown up, but just does enough. It's a bang-bang kind of play. Do just enough, and the running back will be passed by the time that guy blows you up. This is a cool play because it shows, again, you don't have to just go find that talented guy that can just destroy the guy off the line of scrimmage. You can scheme things up for them. I think the part that does make this play a little bit difficult, though, is because you do hear McDonald, once again, as it seems like many times he has this year, lamenting the fact that the team didn't run the ball more. And you have this play go down where Charbonnet gets the touchdown, brings you within 10 points. You get the ball back into the fourth quarter with a lot of time on the clock, with 3 timeouts, and the ability to go back to this run game, knowing the Packers are a little bit susceptible in the run game, and yet Grubb didn't go back to it. I've had some defensive Grubb, and it's a little bit like the Geno situation in certain ways, where you go, look, I can defend you to a certain point on things, but on the part that I don't have any understanding of where you're at with it is your lack of commitment to the running game and leaving it so often and looking for reasons to leave it. You're down by 10 points, but you were running the ball well in this game. Charbonnet had a 5.8 yard per carry average. You can't go away from that even if you're down by 10, especially when you could stand to give your defense a little bit of time with some of the play clock to get a little bit of their rest and maybe make some adjustments to counter what the Packers are doing to them offensively. But strange of Grubb not to go to it more after he had this really nice run here by Charbonnet and plenty of time on the clock and plenty of timeouts. But if Grubb doesn't remain beyond this season, this is going to be the centerpiece reason as to why that's the case. The lack of commitment to the run game. The line is what it is, but you have a run blocking line right now more than you have really a pass protecting offensive line. It would seem at the very least with Lincoln and with your new right guard here, Toa as well. That is what they do as the forefront of their games. And it would seem like maybe that's also the case a bit with Sundell as well. And so you've got to kind of lean into that. Lucas can run block really well, especially the pulling in space stuff. You got to lean into it, not lean away from it, even if it's what you want to do. Keep coming back to Grubb and it being... He's wanting to call the game the way he wants to call it, to how his offense is just purely designed rather than the personnel he really does have. And that's a bit troublesome because in the NFL, you're not always going to have the perfect personnel to run your offense to the nth degree. You got to find a little bit of a balancing game here to get the most out of your team, the most out of your personnel, the most out of your talent. All right, let's keep it moving here to the next segment. And we've been trying all year to tap into the feline powers of psychic persuasion to see if my cat Pumpkin can find a way to predict this football season. And to her credit, last week she did predict a Packer win. So she's been pretty good this year so far. Got the Viking game today. I tried to set the salmon plates up on different spots. And what I do is I put a card on each side. You'll see in a second. One card's got the Hawk side. One side's got the Vikings card side. Salmon in front of each. Which one does she pick? Let's get to the Pumpkin Predicts segment. Man, I wish I could give you guys some good news on this one. I wish I could. Here we've got her. Lined right up. Seahawks. Vikings. What will she pick? And look at this sucker. I put her on the right side. She crosses bowls on me. She crossed bowled me. I got cross bowled the whole way on this one, man. I haven't done it all this year, but I openly tried to change the results on this one. Not change the results, but, guide her a little bit, let's say. Look at it. Coming from right side, completely past the Hawk Bowl. No consideration of the Hawk Bowl. So, Seahawks fall 21-16 to the Vikings. Pumpkin selling on us. Offensive line selling on us. Grub selling. Everyone's selling on us. See, right? Like this salmon waft hit her, and she's like, "No, right? I'm gonna take the extra 5 paces here to this one." All right, Pumpkin. Okay. All right, next segment here. Let's look at this one, which is one we do every week if we can find it. Now, they have NFL legislated hits out of the game by and large, but there is still some moments here and there where you can find some nice little lit up, jacked up spots in the games, and we did this week as well. So let's take a look
The biggest hit of the week.
And in this game, we've got our man Tyrese Knight. He's been on this segment a couple times. This kid's got some lumber. He's definitely going to Home Depot. And he's done it a few times this year where when he comes up and hits a guy, I think he's a legit 235 kind of cat out there. Or definitely up in the upper scope of linebacker weight. Because when he comes up, he does bring that extra bit of hit where the guy's going to just, oh, that hurt. And they're going backwards on contact. But this was a nice little stick on his part, first dropping in space, then coming back up to the receiver on the drag route. He's got 2 responsibilities here. He's on top of him within 2 steps after making the catch, so it's a good play on top of making a good hit. This isn't his coverage responsibility that gets lost here. Packers are attacking the fact that they've got the linebackers in coverage with a receiver, and that's what they're really going after here, which is smart on the Packers and their designs and how they're going at it. But Tyrese Knight with a nice little, there you go, Tyrese. Let him know you don't go across the middle on us, sucker. All right, we'll keep it moving here. And the next segment here is going to look at our underrated hero of the week, though we're really just going to look at one play on this one because this was not a game of heroes. Ernest Jones is a guy that has been handling business here for your Seahawks since he's come along. If you guys are unaware, by the way, I just dropped a Ernest Jones video on the channel yesterday. So if you get a chance, we didn't have a lot of people check it out. I think everybody's kind of licking their wounds a little bit here from that last loss. But if you get a chance, go check out the video. Here's the thumbnail for it. Ernest Saves Christmas. Dropped the video there yesterday. I put a lot of work into that one. I think you guys will dig it if you check it out. Really good chance to kind of highlight what he's done and where he's done and how he's gotten it all done here with your Hawks since coming aboard, what he's brought to the table. He's a very well-rounded skill set. Got attacked a little bit in coverage this past week, but has not been bad in that area of his game. And in this game, again, he led the way with tackles. I believe there's only been one game since he's come along here to your Hawks where he has not led the team in tackles. And though you did have this game where there was some running room early on for Josh Jacobs to get his way through, that's for sure. When you look at it and how this team went down through the course of the game, Josh Jacobs had 14 carries for 73 yards in the first half, but then he only had 12 carries for 21 yards in the second half. So you did find some of that, hey, can we correct this? Can we fix it? Or are they just going to bash our brains in all day? Or can we take some of this back a little bit? The defense definitely did. Jones as a centerpiece of that and leading the way with tackles for you. And that's one of the reasons that he's your underrated hero of the week, but it's really this reason, this play right here in this game. And that is coming out on a point in the game where your team's needing a play. This is just before you go and get the touchdown with Zach Charbonnet. So you're down, I believe, by like 17 points at this point. You got to have a play. And this is those moments in the game where you say, man, the defense needs to get a turnover here. Defense has got to find a turnover here. And here he comes in and provides that turnover. And it's not a play to be made easy. As I noted in the video that I dropped on Ernest yesterday with this, going to the snap to really appreciate what's happening here, Ernest is responsible for the A and B gap to the left side of your screen. So look at the center, cut this screen in half from the center. He's responsible for the A and the B gap if the running back goes there. Tyrese Knight is responsible for the other half as far as A-B gap goes. Okay? So those are the two gaps they're responsible for. But what happens here is Ernest gets down blocked by the center. Tyrese Knight gets completely neutralized and sucked into the line of scrimmage into the A gap. And then you've got Derek Hall who overruns this. This is another one of those examples I was talking about earlier of a player doing too much in this game, where Hall's going to come from the far right-hand side of your screen here when I show this. And he's coming completely out of control, trying to make a play in the backfield, but he ends up overrunning the play and getting smushed. He's trying to attack, gets hit by the wham block. The wham block folds him. Shout out to Derek for getting a very subtle trip here, because this is what does set the stage here. Notice Derek Hall's trip here right around the right side of the field as his 58 comes in. Watch, he gets folded. And now watch his right leg, dink, hits Jacobs there. And that sends Jacobs to a stumble mode to where now Ernest Jones can come in and make the play and cause the fumble. So I will give Hall a hard time on this one where you've got to come in under control. He's the leverage edge defender here. So I understand he gets blocked, but it's his responsibility to not allow Jacobs to get out wide. That's when I say you're doing too much. Your first and foremost responsibility to then going and making a play on the ball carrier in the backfield is to hold that edge leverage and to keep the contain of the running back to force him inside back to the linebackers. Instead, he overplays this a little bit, gets folded up badly on the block, but does get the trip. Jones comes in with the peanut Tillman punch, purposeful, means to try to get this done, means to try to do this, understands the team needs a play in this game at this moment. He's had a couple of interceptions already. He's had a couple of also close call moments. He has been a really good defender for your Seattle Seahawks, was again even in this past game, even with some moments in coverage, and some of those moments come back from, hey, maybe we shouldn't exactly have our inside linebacker on Christian Watson, right? Maybe he shouldn't be covering a wide receiver in space like that. Maybe that's not the best way for us to be kind of angling this as a defense, but he's played really good football for you. He's the guy that I'd expect beyond any other, really, right now at this point on this team, beyond any of the other guys we might be looking at as far as contract extensions go. He's the guy who I think gets paid first and foremost here as we go into this offseason, and he's earned that money. He was also your underrated hero of the week. Keep it moving now. Let's take a look at the NFC West. You know how we do here. We got to keep an eye on them, got to track them, got to see what they're doing, and we're going to do so today. Let's track that NFC West. Well, it could have gone better for us on the grand scheme of things with the NFC West this past week. Week didn't start out well with us on Thursday, where we wanted the 49ers to come in and beat that Rams team on Thursday Night Football. Pouring rain that was the equivalent of those conditions of when it's snowing and there's 6 and 7 inches on the ground, and it's just, it becomes backyard football, basically. It's pretty much the way this game was. The rain died down in the second half. This allowed the Rams offense to then start throwing the ball around a little bit more. Cooper Kupp held for the first time, I think, ever without a catch in this game, and he looks very diminished at the just moment. That's okay, though, because Puka Nacua has been going off and going ham style there for that Los Angeles Rams team. Stafford made some good throws when he needed to in this game. Purdy had to throw about 4 or 5 9 route throws in this game. They tried to seem to be trying to prove that he had the arm strength to do it in this game. He didn't. He doesn't. Poor decisions from him. Deebo Samuel's the shell of his former self. The Rams win, setting potentially up a stage for that final game of the season between them and the Seahawks for who takes the division. They've still got to go out there and take care of business a little bit against the Jets, but to me it all just seems irrelevant on this, where it's like it's going to come down to that, but that's also only if we take care of business over the course of the next 2 games. The other game that went down was the Cardinals taking on the New England Patriots. Cardinals got out in front of the Patriots in this one, allowed the Patriots to kind of hang around. Drake May played overall a pretty efficient game, had the 1 interception, but played pretty well around that. Outside of that, Cardinals got back to their model of play, which is we'll run the ball. We're not going to make any mistakes. We're not going to be heavily penalized. We're going to get the volume of Kyler's passes lowered on down, keep that balance at play a little bit. And that's what they were able to do in this game, and they were able to find the win at home and keep themselves in the playoff discussion, as they've got a very easy game this upcoming week against the Panthers. So that's your NFC tracking of the NFC West. It really does boil down to, at this point, you got to win out. Win out, you control your fate. And as we saw with Chicago last week with Caleb Williams, and hell, you might have Tyson Badgett by that point playing the quarterback position for the Bears. But the Bears aren't looking like they're checked in at this point. Once that coach is out, you're hearing a lot of rumors about players playing for themselves a little bit, already thinking about the offseason. And that means that you very well have a much more easier winnable game there against the Bears on that Thursday night. But that means you got to take care of this game tonight just to get that point where you can play that Rams team on the road for the division title. So this is not going to be an easy climb for the Hawks. They had the opportunity to make this easier on themselves, is what it is at this point. And we'll see if they can answer this test. I think it's going to be a very tough one this week against the Minnesota Vikings and how this is going to go down. We'll just have to see if they can tap back into that feeling of resiliency that they've been able to find a bit time and time again here and there. I wanted to take a look at one other thing before we get you guys in the chat. And that is a little bit of the options the Seattle Seahawks are going to be facing this offseason. Wanted to lay out a couple of them because I think that this, unlike what we might have thought 4 or 5 weeks ago with this offseason, it's kind of weird. Unlike what we thought 10 weeks ago and then what we thought 5 weeks ago, it's in the kind of changing this team and the outlook of what's going to go down this offseason. And I think you would have loved to have gone through this year, come through the end of this offseason and say, okay, it's very clear what we next need to do from our steps to get to contending status after this season. And I think, unfortunately, despite the fact this has been a successful year, and I'm not down on the team, but I do think that the picture is unclear right now, and that there's more different sets of roads opening up as different pathways the team could go down than there is, here's your way, this is what you're going to do, A, B, C, D, E, F, these are the steps and the moves you're going to make to get to here. It's a lot more into the world of, well, you could do this or you could do that. And to kind of show you guys this and to show you, I think, a little bit of what the front office is trying to turn over with this one to try to understand this, let's go through some of these options as I see that they're being faced with right now for this offseason. You've got to make a decision with the Geno Smith and the DK Metcalf this offseason before anybody else really on this roster as far as contract extensions go, like maybe a Boye Mafe, maybe a Charles Cross. What are you going to do with Geno Smith? How are you going to take care of this or not take care of this? And it could be that you can find a trade partner if you don't want to sign up for him. If you then don't go with the Geno option, then you're going to need to go find a quarterback. And then if you go find a quarterback, the thing is, this becomes a pivot point for me on this, because if you don't, you got to go find that quarterback out there. There's one situation we'll talk about that they can go out, they find that's an alternative to this. But if they don't necessarily are able to find the open market free agent guy like a Darnold, then you are looking into the draft. You're not looking at one of the high-end guys in this draft. Drew Aller just went back for Penn State. He looks like he's going back to school. The top 2 guys, Ward and Shadir Sanders, are going to be off the board by the time you're picking. You're not going to be in a position to really get a guy who's even going to be able to maybe push Sam Howell into that first year of being next year of their rookie deal, which would then mean you're in more of probably a pivot to lean into a bit more of the rebuild. But if you didn't want to rebuild, now you're in a bit of a pickle of who is the quarterback you're going to go get. There's not a multitude of options here. You can take a flyer on certain guys. You could go get the Packers have Malik Willis, and okay, we'll go get Malik Willis and we'll have him and Sam Howell duke it out. I don't think that would get anybody terribly excited for the 2025 season as far as a Seahawks fan, or thinking there's any chance that team could really contend. Which will bring us up here to another option in a second I want to discuss in tandem with that one, which wouldn't necessarily be the way they'd go with the no Geno signing. They may still try to contend, but do it with some other quarterback. And I'm not talking about even high-end value guys that, be high-price guys like a Sam Darnold, for instance. Not that. I'm talking more of, you go grab that guy that's sort of the reclamation, like a Malik Willis. We got also the re-sign Geno option. This is where you re-sign Geno Smith. You probably re-sign DK Metcalf. You do what you can then, I would imagine, to try to reinforce the offensive line. I would imagine that this is a deal that would be signed for both, Geno and team that would be team friendly. If you are signing Geno Smith, in my opinion, you've got to also then embrace a bit of the process of extending contracts out, these rookie deals, lowering down the base minimum, Geno and DK's deal, making sure they get their money how they want to get money if you want to sign them, but then also moving the deal and the money around a little bit to stretch some things out in order to get yourself more space to then, let's say, go find offensive linemen in free agency or trades, so you can find some more room there to be able to then build up these other parts of your team while still getting extensions done for guys like Boye Mafe and Charles Cross, if that is what the team wants to seek to do. So this is one of the straightforward options they could go with. If I was a betting man at this point, I think this is the option that they would go with. And not as much even just as necessarily because the team is so in love with the Geno Smith option here, but because of the fact that the other options that exist alternative to Geno at this point are not great. And that guy in the draft is just not really there. These guys in the draft are interesting prospects, but they're not guys that are going to embolden you with a lot of confidence to ride with them going into next year. And hey, that's a real functional competitor there for the Sam Howell we have as the other side of this. It will be hard for John to have much confidence in that, even with an improved offensive line. The next step, and this was one that is a little bit in tandem with the no Geno Smith. This would be, or it could be with Geno Smith, quite frankly, but that would be the rebuild offense mode. And this is one where you would look at your defense and say, okay, our defense is pretty much by and large fine. We'll probably make a couple of cuts with certain guys to create cap space. We need a nose tackle. We're probably going to need another edge when it's all said and done on that side of it. Maybe a cornerback too, but we feel pretty good about the defense. Laser lock in on the offense, and then calibrate that how they see fit. So this could be a Geno, could not be a Geno. This could be a DK, not DK. He's another guy that they have to make a decision on at that point. And if you're rebuilding the offense start to finish, there could be a way that maybe McDonald on this says, okay, look, I want to be a run heavy team to this defense. I can build that defense that can stomp. Let's get the offense back to a place where, I know running is going to be committed, and we're going to have the offensive line, and we're going to have we're going to be able to run the offense the way we want to run it. Get tight ends in that can both, block and catch. So rebuilding the offense is a big way this could go. And that could be mean that you move on from guys that are here to get the others, especially if it's a different identity. Even if it's Grubb's identity, it could be finding more of those receivers that are yak guys, finding more receivers that can, block out in space. But this is also the way they could go where you just almost kind of do the bare minimum on defense, and then you just hammer the hell out of offense. Specifically, of course, the offensive line is the centerpiece. Next up, change offensive coordinator beyond what you do personnel-wise, and this gets harder to predict on what you're going to do personnel-wise if you commit to moving to a different offensive coordinator. But could the team go to a Brian Dable type who just got let go, or a variety of other guys out there that could be very smart offensive minds, real certain NFL-style minds that aren't kind of learning the ropes a little bit like we have with Grubb, especially when there's some wonder here about whether or not you hear McDonald talk so much about the lack of commitment to the run game, and you go, man, is him and Grubb on the same page with this on their understanding of, we got to run the ball. Why are you getting this message I'm trying to get you, or are we at a place where you're going to kind of just do your own thing with that? I don't know it's that place, but you get some sense for that just a little bit. So change the offensive coordinator would mean potentially a lot of changes personnel-wise, from the offensive linemen you look to have on the team to the type of receivers to the tight end and what's the focal point of their offenses, what do they want to look to do. A lot could then change underneath that with the offensive coordinator if you move in conjunction with that move. But they could also look to go with the new offensive coordinator this year. I think that's a move that's definitely on the table at this point as a possibility, and a realistic one at that. Legit quarterback alternatives. This is where you go out there and you go find a guy that is either going to have, it's going to have some money you're going to spend on them, but this is the alternative route to Geno, and the alternative route to Geno that's not a reclamation. That's not a guy you going for Malik Willis or a Desmond Ridder type, or some guy that was a former second, third round guy that, or a former first round guy like a Mac Jones guy that just is underwhelming, but the team sort of says, hey, we see something in him that we can make happen. Here you go a little more legitimate. You actually give the money to a guy like Sam Darnold, who I think you look at Sam Darnold and Geno right now and how Sam Darnold's coming together here for that Viking team. And you could see where maybe the front office would say, well, okay, we'll go with a Sam Darnold, who's essentially like Geno Smith, but 6-7 years younger. It's a possibility on that, especially if the money is going to be very close to even when it's all said and done. So I'm not a big Darnold guy, but I can understand that this is a possible approach for the team this offseason. Another guy that has been somewhat linked to the Seahawks, who's another maybe guy in play here, is Trevor Lawrence. The deal is not as hard as you might think to get out from under from the Jaguars' perspective on this one. I know he signed a recent new deal, but a lot of it's got money buried down the road. Seattle would be signing up to that money. They would be on the hook for that money at that point in order to make that happen. But they might look at that as a way of a guy that is an upgrade for them at that point. Maybe the cost isn't going to be exceptionally high because of the money that's still owed to Trevor, being that you don't get some cheap rookie deal here. Maybe you can find some real common compromise kind of deal where it makes some sense for the Jaguars, makes some sense for the Seahawks, and they get their quarterback for the here and now and the future, and a lot younger, and may feel better about where they're at with the position, potentially going that route. So a legit quarterback alternative could be the direction they go with this. I don't think that they would turn to look to a guy like Kirk Cousins at his age. I don't think you're pivoting off Geno to go to Kirk Cousins. So I can't think of there being really any other guys that stood out to me as far as possibilities on this one of guys that would be in play. Bryce Young seems to have recouped himself there with the Carolina Panthers. I'd be surprised if the Indianapolis Colts would move Richardson, who would have his value at its lowest this offseason. So this would not be a big list of legitimate guys, really, in my opinion, when looking through this. But another route you could go, you still do what you do on offense, you do what you do on defense, but really more of the centerpiece point becomes around that quarterback position and how you move forward on that one. Already did the rebuild offense one there. So those are pretty much our different options that we get to go through this offseason. Geno, no Geno. Rebuild the offense. That can mean a Geno, mean DK, no DK. A new offensive coordinator. Just because, concentrate on the offense. Just dump assets into the offense. Kind of ignore the defense. These are the different approaches I think you could apply, and you'd love it to be more certain at this point on which direction you go, but it is what it is, and one of the good points of this is that you have a lot of flexibility on which route you can go. The Seahawks will have a lot of money to spend when it's all said and done. They've got a different variety of different areas that they could go with this. If the team wanted to go even crazy town with it, like if they wanted to just say, okay, we hear you fans, we hear all the people like me, we hear you dumbass, we got it. Okay, we're going to sign Tevin Jenkins, and then we'll sign Trey Smith. We'll do sort of like the Panthers did with Lewis and Hunt last offseason, and just say, are you guys happy now? So they can even do that. But I do think that the concentration will be on the offense one way or the other, mainly. It's just a matter of how exactly they're going to do that. And we shall see on that one. If you guys can for me, please hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. It does help the channel grow. We're on the road to 20,000 here. Once we get to 19,500 subscribers, we got that 24-hour stream we're going to kick in. So we're getting closer and closer. What are we, about 1,100 away right now from that mark? So I'd really love to hit that if we can. But do please hit that like button for me if you could here today. It does help that channel out tremendously when you do it. Small thing, but a big thing at the same time. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. Any thoughts on the Leo interview with Sherm? I have not seen the Leo interview yet with Sherm, feed me. Sorry on that one. I will definitely check it out. So check back in with me on potentially tomorrow. But I hadn't seen it. Didn't come up on my feed. I usually do always check out the Sherman interviews. Phoebe with another $20 donation. Phoebe coming with the triple donations off the top rope. Let's go, feed me. Says IMO. Kevin O'Connell, best offensive mind in the league. Don't trust Darnold against confusing defenses. And I trust Geno against confusing defenses. IMO, Vikings don't have dogs up front. The deal got cut off here. I have faith in this team to bounce back. So Kevin O'Connell, best offensive mind in the league. I don't trust Donald against confusing defenses, and I do trust Geno against confusing defenses. I'm out. Vikings don't have dogs up front. I have faith in this team bouncing back. Well, I do love the confidence. I love the optimism, feed me. And more than that, I hope you're right. I do hope you're right on that. The defensive line for the Vikings, I'll give you that, defensive tackle-wise, they're maybe not the strongest in there. I think Greenyard and Van Ginkel on the outside are guys that are, while they're not great upper crust guys, they're very, very capable players out there. And they can get the job done as all around kind of players at that, too. And so I do, like you, trust a lot of what Geno does against confusing defenses and heavy blitz defenses. A lot of what teams tend to do with Geno and the Seahawks is play a lot of zone coverage and 4-man fronts and drop guys in zone and just kind of go that route with it. And so, that's partly because of the fact of how well at times they can deal with it when you do try to send the numbers, especially if you're going to leave a guy like DK or JSN one-on-one on the outside. The one worry I have with that feed me is that a lot of times in those moments, you'll have Geno incorporate that 2 or 3 steps of subtle mobility within the pocket to keep himself free of the free blitzer. Let's say Vikings will get a free blitzer itch in. So he goes, 1, 2, 3 over here and then throw it. Can he get through those 3 steps to get to the throw in those moments when they happen in this game? Beyond just getting, being evasive in the pocket and elusive and getting her out of sacks and whatnot, those little moments there where he can be so good with that. Can he call on that, or is his legs going to be restricted and you can see him trying to do it, but the legs just are like a lawnmower you're trying to start up, dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And you can just see him out there going, come on, legs. But he's got to move a little bit in this game if he's going to be back there. I don't think he can just be back there kind of trying to just, I'll stay within this little phone booth of a section of an area and I'll just sit back and sling it. You're going to have to step up. You're going to have to move around a little bit. That'll be as much a big key in this game as to whether or not we can win it. Because I think if you have an immobile Geno, you got no chance. If you got a mobile Geno, he can make them pay. Feed me. You got the guys on the outside that can make them pay. And your reason for optimism there is well suited, in my opinion, at that point. So it really comes down as much to me on that a little bit from a key standpoint, with it. And with Darnold and being confusing on that, I'm with you. I think that Darnold is a guy that typically can get confused quite a bit when you can run some of those stacked boxes and some of those, heavy fronts and really get him into thinking a lot. And Cardinals had some luck with this a couple weeks ago in doing that against him. The issue seems to be a little bit with McDonald at times to me, and watching the tape feed me, is that he doesn't want to get to that stack box stuff on 1st and 2nd down. He really wants to on 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9. And that's where that can be an issue if you don't ever get teams into consistently 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9 over the course of the game. And that, as was kind of the case with the Packers, who averaged like 3.5 yards on 3rd down over the course of the game. So that's where that gets tough, is McDonald's got this preference to not run that stuff more early down times, it seems. And so can you get to it or not? I do agree with you. Donald struggles with it, but that's the one thing I would wonder with that, feed me, is can you get to it? Can you keep him out of those 3rd and shorts? Aaron Jones runs pretty well. He's not going to be a game changer for that Viking team, and the run game for them is not going to be a game changer, but they stay with it. They're balanced. Like you say, Patrick O'Connell's a smart offensive mind. It's kind of that offensive mind that can manufacture stuff for you. Femi, thank you for the $2 donation. It says, can we jam to the Niners song some more? I would love to. I think that there's something with I just don't want to, I worry about the music stuff going down. So I don't know about putting it through. I got to look and see what the rights are. You got to be very careful on the music stuff, feed me, because you play something that's the wrong thing and it can turn out bad. So I got to be very, very careful. But that was awesome of Jake to bring that out on the round table last night. Oh, goodness. Like, I think they cut the volume off afterwards on the deal, after it was recorded, because I think Roundtable was worried about that same thing, feed me. They just don't want to have it get cut. Thank you for all the donations, man. Appreciate you for that. Nick, Geno full goal at practice today. Good sign. Very good sign, man. Daniel Barry, how you doing? Hand grenade, hello. Joe says K9 back tomorrow. Hopefully Sharp's okay. Hopefully. Good to have K9 back in the fold. Can't hurt. Kevin O'Connell says, give this team some mood stabilizers, because damn. Haha. Thomas says, I don't get an evaluation year. It's like Ben Johnson went on a tear on his first year. We all knew Grubb was a college OC learning the NFL. It was going to take time. Yeah. Agreed. I don't get an evaluation. Yes. Well, no, I don't get an evaluation. You might have to elaborate on what you mean. I keep coming to a name realistic OC that can keep JSN Rising DK going. If there is, blame it on Schneider. Yeah, I'd be okay if they roll back with them. It's hard to predict what they're going to exactly do on that. Rand says Sam looked like an undrafted rookie. Yes, he did. Herzide, I'm going to be a little pissed at the 12s. Feel like my hometown is letting me down. We should never be hearing Go Pack Go at Lumen. No, we shouldn't. I feel the same way. You feel let down. You really do. Thomas says, Brando, those interceptions cost Seattle the Rams game, and I don't know if that interception would have got Seattle close to Green Bay, but it would have changed the game. Yeah, the interceptions are problematic on it. That's why I wanted to show the prior years on this too, to where this is a year that this is a problem that's developed this year and hasn't been as much an issue in prior seasons. And so then you start to, that data is pretty succinct. What does that data then mean? It's a 1 year off problem, or it's inherently an issue within his game, or it is fixable and correctable. It would tend to speak to me that it's correctable, but others might see the data a little bit different. Nick says, I don't even live in Seattle, but I have seen the pricing on food and alcohol. Maybe the Seahawks could do what the Falcons do and have affordable options for the family. That would be nice. That would definitely be nice. Joe's a good Gino Dana. Thank you, Joe. Thomas, I just hope McDonald's not doing something stupid, because if he fires Grubb and the offense is worse next season, I want McDonald fired. Yeah, I think he's got a tough decision here, Thomas. I think that there's some things with this, like I was trying to reference at the top of the show on this, with the run game and having a head coach that wants to see the run game, and that there's some games this year that you can draw upon and look at to where Grubb's gone away from it, and frustratingly so. And fans have kind of been like, wow, why did he go away from the run game? What happened in the run game? And then the coach comes out and he's like, why did he go away from the run game? What happened with the run game? I don't think that there's something out of whack to say they may not be in alignment with their outlook on how they want to run that. And I think that's more of the centerpiece point than just Grubb doing the bad job. And, you mentioned Ben Johnson there, Thomas, but Ben Johnson took over mid-year for the Lions firing their offensive coordinator. Coordinators don't get the same kind of benefit of the doubt of head coaches. And I'm not against giving Grubb another year, Thomas, so I don't want to make this sound like I'm selling that. But I will say that I can understand the other side of it. Somebody may come to a conclusion and saying, OC's not like head coach. The offense has not gotten better as the year's gone along. There seems to be some disconnect between the head coach and the OC and the general nature of how they want the game to be run. And that does kind of point to maybe this could be a change, given those kind of deals at play. Derek, the Seahawks Lightning fan, says, being fair to the sellers, they mostly don't know the people they're selling to. It's normally on things like Ticketmaster, but it's still ridiculous they wouldn't go to a primetime game with a good team. Yeah, that's again where it's I get what you're saying, and to a degree you're right, Derek, but I think that they're acting like an idiot if they sit there and they're thinking that they're selling it to a Seahawks fan. And that there's enough of this information out there right now at this point of that this is happening that they could react to that by this point. We're long overdue for the recognition to happen of going, oh, hey, all the season ticket holders keep selling of our tickets to other people's fans. Maybe we should stop that, and we're kind of years down the line of this continuing to happen. It's just getting worse and worse to the point now where the stench is so foul that we can smell it states away. And so, that's to me where I will tend to be a pretty forgiving, Derek, myself to fans and understand where they're coming from. But on this one, now I think it's greed. Nobody when I was younger bought Seahawks season tickets with some sort of thought process of how they can turn the profit margin on them. You might have sold your tickets. You might have sold one of them to your friends, but you're hand selling them from one friend to the other. He's a Seahawks fan, and you're not really doing it for profit. This whole We can make a little bit of some juice off the Hawk ticket nug. That's a new thing. The thing is, like, these people operate by these like new standards, and then my people are like, oh, you guys are doing this new thing. Like, well, it's just, people got to do what they got to, kind of do with when they just do what they got to kind of do. No, you've created a new thing that sucks. That's awful. It's only good for you. And the whole point of Seahawks fandom and the whole point of having a Hawk team, the whole point of is it's community based. It's ours within the community. You're doing something individually. Now you're turning away from the communal spirit that's there for the whole creation of it in the first place. And that's fine if that's what we want to do, if that's where it's going to go. But then let's call it what it is. And that's what you're doing. It's this like tangible way where it's sort of like, well, they're not totally aware they're slipping the knife into the back of the heart of the 12th man. It's the blade just kind of falls into it. They're jamming that sucker in there and they're giving it a twist and they're seeing how many coins can drop out the open wound. Adam says, I think scalpers have slowly accumulated the season tickets, possibly even tickets selling apps. I agree, Adam. Yeah, that's probably some of it too. I don't know. I've heard a lot of stories though too, Adam, of people bragging about this stuff. They're very open about it. Like they're proud of it. Like I'm talking about where they should be shamed by it. They're openly proud about it. They'll talk about it online. They don't come in my chat talking about it. I think they know they'll get flamed, but plenty I've seen talk about it. People that I've talked to have had friends who've talked about it. Those Packer fans, they'll pay top market prices. Those Buffalo Bill fans, man, they'll just one after another. There you go. Paid off all my season tickets next year. It's great. I don't know, Adam, on it, man. In the interactions, and I have a very unique position here in Adam and doing it where it's doing the show for years now, multiple times a week, interactions I have with people that go in that stadium and see the things and deal with tickets and all that other stuff. The fans are on the hook on this one. They really are. This is not one where we get to just put this on somebody else's back and say, well, it's just won this over. No, it's hey, this one's on us, On Nagaza on the playoff game against the Packers, it was that way because playoff tickets are sold in a unique, different way than necessarily having the season tickets sold out. Where it's because you sort of go, okay, now they're open to everybody. There's a chance there for people that are Green Bay fans to jump on those tickets quicker in the playoffs than the way they set it up. There's some teams now, Nagasa, that have set it up to where the playoff tickets will only sell within regional IPs, but that was not the case back there during the Hawk Packer playoff game in 2014. Femi, thank you for another $2 donation. He says, sorry about yesterday, but Jimmy and Gino not the same. No, I'm okay with it. I was unaware of Jesse drawing into that comparison, and I don't even know if at this point Jesse's really truly operating with this stuff, or he's going to such depths of Gino hate on his anti-Gino sentiment that it's kind of getting to like, I just think he's just almost when maybe he's just trying to trigger me on it, and get me to the place where I go off on it about it because I will. But he's got a weird outlook on this whole thing, and he keeps doubling back down and further drawing into it and further Gino's Jimmy now. You think he's that good? Like, as I said last night, and he didn't push back on it. Jimmy Garoppolo wouldn't have lasted a game behind this offensive line. He would have been crying off the field by halftime. So I didn't mind. If he's going to be ridiculous and have ridiculous takes, I'll hammer him. I'll hammer him all day on it. Especially on this one where it's like, trigger me or not. Fine, trigger me. I'll give you exactly what you want with it. Which is me raking apart your argument and outlook on the situation. It's like I said last night to him, Femi, I said Gino's been a top 10 quarterback prior. He's a top 10 quarterback this year. That's what he's been. I said, you put any other quarterback in there? And I've been consistent about this with the Hal stuff, folks. This Hal thing that happened, I'm not just a Johnny-come-lately of a Hal hater here. And I'm not a Hal hater. I was not down on the trade when it happened. But I told you guys what I saw in person at training camp, and I know what I saw. I may not be a professional at this, but I watch enough quarterback play and scout enough quarterbacks that I can see non-functional quarterback play. And that happened as well. That's the thing that gets me on this FEMA is that I go in there and it's like with those guys, it's like they move the line, some of them do, on what their opinions were when I walked into there. It's like a lot of those guys thought Geno was going to be benched for Gene Howell by week 6. Multiple guys when I first walked in that round table said that. And now suddenly everybody's quiet when Howell goes in the tank like that. It's like, look, if you want to have your take, have your take. But then when your take's proven wrong, don't double back down on your poor take and be like, oh, see how I was right on that thing? You weren't right on that. What are we talking about here? You weren't right on that. You were wrong. You were completely wrong. But such is the way with this Geno discussion. I've seen it internally as well. It's, it is what it is a little bit. Phoebe with another $2. Thank you, man, for all the support today. Another $2 dono. He says, it felt like our D-line was overcommitting on plays. Yeah. I show, for instance, this was really one that was, I think, the greatest representation. I caught Roy Robertson Harris as well when doing the film, looking at the film, did this stuff too on a play or two as well, where guys just were trying to do too much. And this play from Tyrese Knight is really good, but Derek Hall coming down there right there and losing that edge leverage. I mean, this could have been a 35, 40-yard run here. I know Julian Love looks like he's going to come up and be able to help out on the tackle, but that's how bad that is when you make those kind of mistakes. When you lose that kind of edge leverage, you're that safety net on this play. You force this ball back inside from Derek Hall's standpoint. See, because you got all those collection of bodies, right? Why do you have him do it? Because you have all of the bodies netted up. So when you're running run defense, you've got this almost umbrella-like situation you're creating around the running game, right? And that's not requiring guys to penetrate back through. That's you slowly collapsing in around them. And so these edge guys on pitch plays, round that running back inside, don't get forced outside like by the tackle where he just pivots you completely out of the C gap, squeeze it down, keep your outside shoulder clean. So if that back goes outside your outside shoulder, you're there to tackle him. Otherwise, you force him inside. That's your priority number one. And then priority number two is if you can get there, make the play. If you can get there, but there's the priority number one side of it. And yeah, there was a couple of those plays. Roy Robertson Harris in this game on another big run early on did the same thing where he presses right upfield, gets too far into the backfield, loses all the leverage outside, and the back exposes it. And that's where some of those issues were coming up early in the season in this way as well. And I go, okay, maybe they were amped up. It was prime time. Guys were trying to make a play. Guys want to show out, and you just end up doing too much rather than, trust your job. Keep that outside shoulder clean, force them inside, trust that your teammate's going to be inside there to make the play if the back goes to that area. And if he comes at you, take care of it if he comes at you. And it's I guess an easier said than thing done for these defenses, because I think there's really a draw for them at times to just want to kind of, I can get back there. I can go make this play. Leonard Williams in the first half got hit in the same way. A couple plays where, like you say, Femi overran his gap a little bit. Just got a little bit too far. Didn't really get blocked out of the play. Just tried to penetrate too much into the backfield and left his gap open then because of it behind him. And he wasn't able to make the play in the backfield at the point of the handoff. And there you go. Yeah, there was a good amount of that on the tape. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, Brian Flores, you will blitz all night. Over under 10 sacks on our quarterback. Will need to learn how to throw from their butt. Geno is solid, but doesn't sell tickets. No, I suppose Geno doesn't sell tickets, or he doesn't at least prevent season ticket holders from selling their tickets, I guess would be the way to say it, Jeffrey. Yeah, you've got a quarterback that's lame, who can't move around. You saw this with Rodgers earlier this year when Rodgers had a hamstring injury on his left leg and couldn't really plant on that front leg. And you saw the opposition dial up blitzes like never before, like they never would with Aaron Rodgers when he was in his prime. And because the guy can't move, and sometimes it's not even about you getting away from a guy that's a free rusher. It's just that you have a necessity now to move that 3 or 4 steps or to climb the pocket 3 steps up, and it takes you a labored couple of seconds to do it. And that's enough time for a defensive lineman to get on top of you. And so, yeah, I expect Flores is going to go with one of his highest blitz, not probably his highest blitz rate, because he does have DK on the backside and JSN on the backside. So there's got to be a little bit of a balance to this, but it's going to be one of their higher blitz rate games. I would estimate over the course of the season, Jeffrey, to your point. And you're probably right about Geno not selling tickets. There's certainly plenty of segment of the fan base that just will not sign up on him, will never sign up for him, that can't move off of him fast enough. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation, Jordan. Jess comes off as he thinks you have to have a top 5 quarterback to win a Super Bowl on a second contract, which isn't the case. Yeah, he's got a very narrow focus of what it takes to go get the Super Bowl. I agree with you. And he is a guy that, as I listen to him talk about stuff at times, he gets very much into that simplistic approach of quarterbacks are the end all sort of be all for you on the team. And you either have the guy who's the end all be all, or you don't have the guy that's the end all be all. And I don't have the same outlook for it, of course, with that. I think that there's a lot of different roads to getting to a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl. And there's been even recent proof of that, of those different roads. But I think he's also admitted to me that a little bit of this is his colored upbringing of being a guy that grew up with Montana and Steve Young. And so you won your Super Bowls with that. When you went to the Super Bowl with the Ravens, Jordan, you think about this from his perspective. You went with the Ravens in the Super Bowl and Colin Kaepernick. You've caught even Kaepernick at the end of the game with those just weak-ass fade route balls that he's trying to throw in the back of the end zone in that game. And he sees that and he goes, oh, we came up short there. And then he's got Jimmy Garoppolo and they get to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and he's not good enough. They come up short there. Then he goes to a Super Bowl here with Brock Purdy and then you come up short there. And so he's got the recency bias a little bit with this as well from his own personal perspective of, I've had this team that's good enough, that's great across the board, but we didn't have that quarterback. And that's the thing I can point back to as to why we didn't, get that job done. And so I get where he's coming from on that, but that's why you can't just make your view of this exclusively so to your own team only, but what it is across the sport. Otherwise, you might be looking at a sample size situation. And because at the end of the day, we're talking about 3 different Super Bowl appearances. If you're letting that color you on the verse of, Montana and Young and all they did that provided. But even in the case of those guys, with Steve Young, I don't know that it was really Steve Young that got that team over. He was that type of talent, but that was a team that was a well-oiled machine with Bill Walsh when Young came over and took over from Montana at that point. And Montana was a great quarterback too, but I've always said with Montana, you put Montana into a different place, you put him out in Houston over the course of his career, and Montana is not Montana. Montana probably never goes to any Super Bowls. So this is where we get back to, in my opinion on this, Jordan, there's less of this needing to be drawn to the quarterback position as the end all be all, as a point of obsession, and more of the point of obsession should be building the team, build the great team. That's you can functionally do that. That is more attainable than finding the magical leprechaun quarterback, in my opinion. But you're probably right on that, Jordan. Well said on your part. Phoebe, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, because they don't think O-line is important. You might have to, I'll look for you. You don't have to put a donation on me, but I might have to have you expand on that and what you mean by that. I'm probably behind a few minutes on what you meant by that, but definitely that's where we've been at so far with this team. Agreed. King, thank you for the $2 donation. Long live the King. Wonder what Mac was thinking on that Sharps touchdown. I can't believe that worked, was sort of the front running thought that I kind of thought as well. I can't believe that worked and it got us a touchdown. But, there's also that point where it could have been like, this is why I've been on top of this guy. Why isn't he calling this stuff more? Why is there so much hesitancy to go to this stuff? It's working. It was working last week. That's that disconnect I talk about, King, where I wonder a little bit about McDonald feeling like, hey, I've tried to get us on the same page with this, and I feel like you're still kind of on your own. You're on your own tone with this, and you're just going to do what you're going to do. It feels that way. I don't know it to be that way. It just does feel a little bit of that way. But hard to say. Could have been a couple of emotions going through him at that point. Little Dallas Cowboy, how you doing? This is Brando. Hey, bro. It's rush hour. What time is it? Oh, we're 6:30 my time. Hopefully you're getting through it okay. Wow, one good play call from Grub. Yeah, that's about it on that day, on the day there, Thomas. What's up, Lou? Derek says Corbin had a good point on that the Geno interception play had Lockett's route too close to Fance, and it's something that would have passed fine in college, but it allowed the defensive back to make a play on the narrower field. It's a good point there. I think, Derek, too, that's a little bit of a spot where I think Grubb's on the hook on that play, and in other plays, too. That part of the play sucks, having two guys in one place, especially at the short end of a field like that, Derek, where you're already having so much congestion down there and there's littler space than ever on the field to work with. What I really would have liked is your 3rd down and 9 inside the red zone. You've not been particularly good in the red zone. Geno's not been good in the red zone. 3rd and 9s are not really highly converted plays. You wrap that all up and you take into account what's going on in the moment there. To me, you run like a little short drag route underneath. You throw it to the back. You try to run something that's a little bit creative maybe, but don't get too much to a place where you're going to have Geno sitting in the pocket, sitting and holding the ball and hoping something opens up. And that's where you as a play caller can help your quarterback, a quarterback who struggled in these moments in this particular season, but where Grubb was not willing to with that play call. All of those routes were going into the end zone there. David Flores says, yes, we cannot abandon the run. As difficult as it is to run on Minis D, Flores D. Yeah, it's not easy to do it, but you got to stay with it, David. You're right. Derek says, it's a shame too. Brian, oh, sorry. Speaking of Brian, boom, boom. Pumpkin, no. Ryan, the only thing I that can think of in his next game is Woolen versus Jefferson, Joe versus Addison. I'd love to blitz Donald and make him uncomfortable back there, but I fear press coverage by our guys on Addison Jefferson. Yeah, probably so. We'll see how much they do in this game. Could be a tough line to draw a balance on with that one. Cameron says, I'm sure Grubb will be doing some reflecting this offseason and will come back with an onslaught of knowledge at the NFL level. Let's go, Hawks. Hawks for life. Let's go, man. Sean Thompson says, Brandon, no offensive line equals no grubby chubby. No, man. Soft as a marshmallow, Sean. Sucks. Derek says, the only thing I noticed about Ernest is he gets juked in the open field kind of easily, but most linebackers do, to be fair. Yeah. It can happen. And he's not a perfect linebacker on that, Derek. There's a thing or two here there. They're not horrible, glaring issues, but that's where you'd hope with his contract he'd come to a fair place. The Seahawks come to a fair place, and you're not having to necessarily break the market to get the deal done. David says, I'm afraid Aaron Jones is going to run it all day. Not as good as Jacobs, but still efficient. Gash yardage. He can get a job done. He can get the job done. Kevin says they should send that EJ4 video to us, John Schneider. What if your fans put together what we think is going to be a proper summation of why we need to be paid? Thanks, Hawks Nest. You're costing your Hawks millions of dollars. Peter says Lumea looks great pulling into the gap or breaking off a double team to lead block at a linebacker, anything one-on-one down blocking, and he's horrible. Yeah, he struggles right now, especially in pass pro on that, Peter. Absolutely brutal. David says, it appears Hawks fans don't have to live the Hal nightmare because it looks like Geno will play, but ditto's all over. He has to be prepared better. He's going to need to be at his best, man, on this game. You need it. That's a tough Viking defense from a variety of different standpoints to have to deal with, especially given the injury he's going to be dragging along. It ain't going to be easy. Connor says, if we could get Lawrence, I'd be very happy. Lots of film. People are high on him. Get him out of Jacks and see what he can do. I could see the team making that kind of move here, Connor. The thing that stands out is that as much as people would love to have the draft be the pathway that they take, go find that fine, shiny, new toy in the draft. Top 5, top 10 pick. Those guys aren't going to be out there for you to go get. Not this year. I mean, do you want to wait till next year when the team might be actually ready to compete to still tell that team, oh, well, we're 2 years out and then you're going to have a rookie quarterback and then are we 3 years out? And, you know, you start to look at that timeline and you go, boy, that doesn't really match up to where we think this team is at and what they're capable of doing in the foreseeable future, the near foreseeable future. Might push them to make that kind of trade. Kevin says, by and large, this fan base is trash. Every time being in the chat, just immediately talking about trading DK, Geno F, McDonald, blah, blah, blah. No actual buy-in to who this team is. Yeah, I think there's maybe some of that. I mean, it's always a mix. It's always hard, Kevin, to paint everything with a broad brush on this one. As I think that there's a variety of fans out there. And, you know, I think right now where the fan base is at and how they're engaged with this team or not engaged and for whatever reason. And I don't quite understand it as well on this as much because, you know, when the team's not maybe good or they're bad and I get maybe the checking out, but like, you know, being top of the division this deep into the season, this point in time of the year and a new coach, and you'd think people would start to be a little more, you know, fully in on that, but we may be in a bit of a different age on that, you know. Monsoon, is our stadium getting invaded by Viking fans this week? I would think so, yes. That's a good fan base. They travel, and it's going to be pretty easy to spot all of the purple out there. Next is, I just want to find a way to keep DK, greatly improve the O-line, and have an OC who understands the personnel at wide receiver, tight end, running back, and can properly use them as such. I think that's fair. I think I'd be in a very similar outlook of it. David says Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee. Yeah, I was talking about that at the top of the show, David. It's, you know, he's talking about the fact when he was here 10 years ago, he didn't remember ever hearing that. It's been a new development. Brian says, why is it that some people don't seem to realize that when tickets are put on the secondary market, they have zero control on who buys them? Zero. That's that part I don't really buy into, the fact that they don't think about the fact that there's another fan that could be buying it. I don't think that they care. I mean, I think even if you have a fan at this point who's been selling their tickets and they learn about the fact that these tickets are going to these fans and they even learned this information now, like they with 100% certainty didn't know before, I don't think that they give any more of a care now. I think that's just kind of a bit of a part and parcel of the era that we're operating in of right now of like, I do what I want. I don't care. I'll do what I want. I don't care. I'll do it. All right. I've had enough too of interactions with people of this mentality type in my own chat with talking about being loud in the stadium, and they're like, well, they want to come to the stadium and they don't want to be loud, so what? It's like that the same person the person that operates and talks about that is the same person that sells their tickets. It's like, to them, it's just this experience where they just go out there and they stare at it. It's like, well, I get that that's a way a lot of people go in their stadium experiences in other towns and other cities, but we had something here kind of unique where we did something a little bit extra. Yeah, but not me. Yeah, but, you know, prior generations did it multiple times over. You know, grandparent to child, child to the next. Not me. All right. Alphas is bad at balloons. If someone like Kevin Stefanski or Frank Reich were to be open to come in at OC, Would there be an argument as to why you wouldn't fire Grubb? Reich and Stefanski are more proven, and I take either. I think you probably make a good argument as to why it probably makes sense if you have one of those guys that's truly on the market that's legitimate alpha. I've heard some people making suggestions of moving off Grubb for something that's still going to be a very much a flyer kind of guy, where the Jake Peets guy with the Rams, for instance, like we're going to go back to the Rams, we're going to go back to the McVay tree. Really? Is that what we want to do here? So if you've got like Stefanski's completely legitimate, I'm not so sure. I think Stefanski's so legitimate alpha that I think he's got a good chance of still going and getting a head coaching job somewhere. But, if you've got that legitimate of an OC available to you that's top notch and the team really believes that and knows that guy is that way in their assessment of it too, then I could understand them making the move. I'm not anti-Grubb. I'm not anti-rolling with Grubb another year, but I am of the measure of the same point of understanding that if they did move off of him, there's been plenty of reason to do so. The offense is underperformed. The offense is regressing as the season goes along. You should have gotten more points out of the collective offensive talent you have on this team, offensive line or not. You've not worked around the weaknesses of the offense by and large. I mean, these are all things that you put together. You go, that's not a good look. So if that's an option instead, and I would get it if they would take it. Not saying I'm ascribing to it or telling them that's what they should, but I'd get it. I'd understand. SL Hazard, this is a make or break off season for John Schneider. If he doesn't invest in the O-line, I'll be the first to grab a pitchfork, but right now let's see what he cooks. Yeah, agreed. I'll be right there with you with the pitchfork if he doesn't as well. Cameron says sweep or a screen pass to Mac. K-Mac, Jason's doing okay then, but putting some juice behind those catches and runs would be beneficial. He's doing good. Joseph, how do I subscribe, pay? You can do a couple different ways. I've got PayPal, Venmo links below in the description section. If you want to go through the YouTube app and donate through that, you just have to be logged in through your Gmail account and have your Gmail account, of course, have a credit card on file. And if you are signed in, you got a credit card on the file with that same account, then you would be able to subscribe up and donate if you wanted to. So it should be a subscribe button to you on whatever you're looking at right on your map. You're logged in too, Joseph, so should be a sub button there right next to the deal. I did get, hey Brandon, hey 12, sorry I'm late. Do you think K9 will be better, same, or worse than Sharps on that student body right play that looked so good last week? I think K9 can do justice too. Yeah, I think he's every bit as... I don't think that there's a Charbonnet uniqueness to him and how he runs it that makes him better than K9 in running it. The team just hasn't been committed past the last 2-3 weeks to running it. It's the Jets game where you started to run it for the first time, really. And absent that, you hadn't brought it out at all. So yeah, he'll be able to run it very well. Very well. Nick says, preach B. That's my point. If you're a season ticket holder, you should want to go to each game. Yeah, you should. I don't want to hear about, well, that matchup's not one. Well, don't be a season ticket holder. Don't buy the season tickets. Just buy the individual tickets then. Yeah, but you want to resell some tickets, don't you? Yeah, I do. Yeah, you do. Yeah. You just don't care, do you? No, I don't care. No, you don't care. That's it, man. Derek says, I agree about Community B and think this is for profit thing is a ripple of a modern all throughout American culture where community is being lost currently and everything is becoming generalized. Agreed. Yeah, I feel the same way. And this isn't a political thing. This is a community thing, really. There's no way there should be any sort of political thing. It's not. And I'll be as pro-capitalist as anybody out there. Find a way to turn a dollar, I get it. But not at the sake of this. I never in my life have sold the ticket on the open market that I've gotten for a Seahawks game. Been to a lot of Seahawks games. And this little ticket right here, I'm pointing to right there. That's from the 80s. Went to every one. Buy the ticket, go to the game. And again, just to say this, and I won't belabor this, but you have something here in Seattle that nothing else has anywhere else in sports. Not in baseball, not in basketball, not down in college football stadiums. Nowhere else does this exist. This home field advantage to this degree Nowhere else. You have players from multi-generations over, players who played in the Kingdom, players who played in Lumen. To a man, over and over again, will tell you, no place louder, no place harder to play. No place that I looked less forward to having to deal with than that place. And the advantage that that then gave your teams through these generations of teams. And the fact that we so uniquely here, for some weird, odd reason, found it here. We figured it out here. Not that we're better. Not that we just found this thing out that we figured out that we could do. That no one else had tapped into the degree that we tapped into it. And not once we walked into Lumen and Paul Allen got the acoustics right on in the Kingdom. In the 80s with an expansion team. In a concrete jungle of a stadium that was built for about $10,000. With a team that wasn't particularly good. There weren't excuses at that time. You just got loud. You didn't say that, well, there's the team with the cell, with the thing, with the ball. Well, there was the, well, I mean, what do you want them to do? Well, the price will give them the reason. The bitching and moaning about, satiate me with this and that, and then I'll give you that. Take care of me with A, B, C, D, E, F, and then I'll give you that. We used to just give it to them. We didn't used to have this 8-step other requirement and lockstep in addition to it like this, what I hear. And I hear, it's not just the chat I have here where you guys are on, we're all in lockstep on this, but I've had so many chat sessions where I haven't been lockstep with it, where I get the pushback on this, where I hear from these same people and they talk to me about how, I'll do what I want. I don't care. All right. But yeah, it's an issue. And it's probably a larger societal one there. I feel like we've just kind of gotten to that place where it's just, I'm going to go get mine and it doesn't matter what I got to do to go get mine. And this is sometimes just an extension of that. O'Dwyer says, I do feel American sports culture has taken a turn the last few years, especially with Ticketmaster. It's outrageous how much money season ticket holders and scalpers make from the secondary market. It really is. And yeah, I agree. Sports are taking a turn across the board in a lot of ways. We'll see how this goes into the future of things, but look at what happened with basketball right now. I think, these sports in general, and football is high on the hog. You don't have to worry about this, but sports in general has got to think about the fact that this isn't 1975 anymore. And there's a lot of entertainment options out there for the public. And, yeah. Cole says ticket prices need to be regulated in general. The resale market is insane. I definitely would like to see them at least tap into the resale market of things. My theory on this is the NFL won't do it though, because the resale market ensures that the season ticket holding says the season tickets get sold enough to where there's only so many other secondary tickets then available on the market week in, week out in any given market of the NFL. And that then means that they're going to have enough tickets sold every week to make sure they don't have blackouts. And I think if you remove the resale side of it, I think the NFL would tell us then we're going to have markets where all the tickets aren't going to get sold for those teams, especially that are bad teams late in the year. And then we're going to get blackouts. My answer to that is I don't care. You guys make a lot of money. Don't do blackouts. Everyone's worst nightmare. I understand that you want all Seahawks fans at your home games, but do you think that actually determines the outcome of games? Yeah, I do. As someone that has spent 4 separate decades going in that stadium, and who has seen games in multiple generations and seen games that have an effect. I mean, one of the first videos there for everyone's worst nightmare, please go look at one of the first videos that I dropped on my channel. It's one of my most watched videos on my channel, probably well over at this point 200,000 views. And that's on the day the 12th man won the football game, where there's literally a game in our history where I can specifically show you we won the game. It caused like 13 false starts on the game. Yeah. And again, this isn't just to my opinion on this everyone's worst nightmare. That's why I just referenced as well as you can go and hear former players talk. Go listen to Howie Long talk about playing in the Kingdom. Or go listen to J.J. Watt playing out here, or any other player in that time, or Chris Long, Howie Long's son, playing for the Rams in Seahawks Stadium. Go listen to multiple generations over and they'll tell you the exact same thing I'm telling you right now. That's why I'm lamenting this loss. It's no small thing that's just sort of like, oh, well, too bad, so sad. It's a major thing going out the door. Major thing. But yeah, man, it's that big of an effect that it has. Yeah. And everyone in this chat will second me on this and that they'll confirm exactly what I'm telling you on this. Go Breeze, I've looked recently for single game tickets and they go around $350 for upper deck. That makes a game experience like $500 or $600 a person. Not doable. I get that. I understand. I do. One Airborne, thank you for the $2 donation. Sorry, a little late to acknowledge your dono. Didn't see it pop in there. He says, go Cardinals. Hey, man, you guys still in this. Congrats to you guys and still fighting through. And, boy, you got two teams that are around the same record, kind of slightly little outlooks in where they're at, but your Cardinals have had a good year. And you're going to double your win streak, wins from last year, no doubt about that. And you're on the right path with $100 million to spend this offseason. Cardinals are going to be scary going into the future, One Airborne. They're going to be scary. More scared kind of right now the Cardinals going in the future years than I am of the Rams and the 49ers as it stands. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. Build the team and a Trent Dilfer can win you a Super Bowl. Agreed, John. Agreed. It's a place where people will tell you, well, there's just, yeah, you could do it, but it's a... And my thing with the whole people that'll say that, well, it's been done, but hasn't done really frequently is number one, with Brady and Mahomes, you've had a unique era of a sample size of era where two quarterbacks have really largely been that GOAT kind of guy carrying things through. They've been that vision all of these general managers have in their head, John, of when they go to look for one of these quarterbacks at the top of the draft, right? But that's also to be said of, that's also a bit of a sample size versus the rest of the NFL history and teams that have won Super Bowl championships in different eras. And a part of why you don't see more of a Trent Dilfer model or a Seahawks model from 2013-14 or an Eagles model even from when they won. I know the Eagles took Wentz, but the Eagles were able to win with Foles at quarterback at that point, who would be a theoretically kind of a lesser quarterback because of the fact you built such a strong team up around that wasn't reliant on the quarterback to have to carry the day. Even in a game against the Patriots, by the way, John, where both of those two teams were scoring back and forth 24/7. And I know Foles played a really good game in that Super Bowl, so I don't want to, he was definitely in kind of a different level of play, during that playoff run that they did have, as far as versus what he was as a normal player. But part of the reason you don't see more of it is that the purposeful approach from so many teams here, John, is to go find the magical quarterback. So there's so few teams that actually commit to building the really strong team, and let's see if the team can get it done, versus all of those other teams that are going down this pathway of looking for the magical quarterback. So then when the data shows that there's not as many teams that have done it by this way, it isn't merely because that's a failing way. It's because of the fact that there's so many teams that don't take it as even a process of trying it out. If I've got 32 NFL teams, and every NFL team over a given offseason, when you look at their quarterback situation and their approach to their team building and what they're trying to do, and maybe 3 or 4 teams are really trying to build up the team strong, and the rest of the 28 are just looking for that magical quarterback, well, then the data then of teams not getting that done shouldn't be something that instructs me that it can't be done. It just instructs me that it's not tried very often. And that's why I've leaned on it so often, John, in this pathway for our Seahawks as we go forward, is the difficulty in finding that magic man quarterback. Look at Caleb Williams with the Bears right now, where they're going, oh, I know that Washington feels good with Jaden Daniels, and certainly the Patriots feel good with Drake May. And, there are some success stories there too, but it's no certainty on that side of it. But we also got there 10 years ago with this approach. So I say, why can't you do it again? Especially having the same general manager in house who would understand how to create the same theoretical parameters as long as he could figure out an offensive line to build that kind of team up in that way. And so it's one that's not used a lot, John, but I believe in it. I think it's real, and I think you can go down this path, especially because I'm not sure that we can go find the magical quarterback down another path at this point. Seems like all of those routes have been closed off a little bit for us, at least in the foreseeable near future. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. Stronger arm, Chad Pennington or Brock Purdy? It's a good question. That's a really good question. I'm going to go with Brock. Brock's probably got just a little bit more. Chad's was rough. Though I will say at least Chad could throw through that New York wind. So I'm probably underselling on Chad a little bit here, Long live. but I'll give it to Purdy. It's tight though. It's a horse race by a nose. By a horse snout. Thank you for the donation. Feed me, appreciate the $2 don't know. What's your top 5 favorite Christmas movies? All right. Christmas Story, because it's a lineage, it's, you know, it's legacy. You got to keep it in there. Okay. So you got a Christmas Story. To me, I know some people on there, no, you can't have Christmas. I'm Christmas Story. I know. I think it actually hasn't aged that bad either. I can still go and watch that movie. I was just thinking of the other ones I had on my Elf. I think you got to put Elf in there at this point. That seems to be just a yearly, no matter what on it. I'm not as big a Grinch guy. I know a lot of people like the Grinch. I put Die Hard in there. I do think Die Hard's a Christmas movie. And it's a good little, like, all the other Christmas movies have kind of the same themes going on. It gives you a little bit of a different, as you're trying to go through a couple of different movies, you know, it gives you a little bit of a different flavor on that one. So I go with that one. Last two. I have to think about the last two on where I'd be at with that. That's tough. National Lampoon's Christmas, Vacation. That would have to be in there. The National Lampoon's one's I gotta include that one. Maybe Santa Claus, Tim Allen maybe is number 5. I have to think about it. Feel good about the first 3 though, for sure. There, feed me. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. After the M's leading their division and losing the playoff spot, and the Seahawks leading their division and losing their playoff spot, we might be cursed. Well, you know, they say they have like the Chinese years with the dragon and the snake, and you know, maybe that was the case for us this year, Jeffrey. You know, I haven't checked the numerology yet this year, but maybe it wasn't the year for if you were in Seattle, you know, it wasn't your time, you know. You shall get very close to the finish line, but you will then fall just short. If we had a fortune cookie, that's what it would have told us in Seattle in January. Yeah. Sucks to get close, and then to be just that far away. And in both of the cases, the Mariners and the Seahawks right now, Jeffrey, it's a thing where you have pretty good teams, and you got a lot of reason for optimism and hope in the future, but you don't always have exactly the clear way and method that you're going to be able to apply to get up over the hump fully. You're up to the hump. You're towing the line on that hump. But how do you get now up over the hump? And it's not clear with either what they're going to be able to do. Mariners, because of their financial limitations, and the Seahawks, with just the little bit of where they find themselves a bit to a degree here, being stuck a little bit in between here the past couple of years. Vivian Moore Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. We should do a Christmas poll for fun. Why not? Yeah, I'll pop it up here. We're not going to probably go super late today, Feed Me, but I'll pop it up on the next one for sure. I'm going to be kind of in and out a little bit tonight. I got to get out to the airport and pick up the moms coming back in on a flight. So Feed Me, man, thank you for all the support today and donations to the channel. Thank you for $5. It says, if you had to choose, would you rather have another Super Bowl, Mariners win the World Series, or the Sonics win when they come back, or the Kraken? This is a good question. I'm not a big Kraken are great. I'm not a hockey fan, so I don't care. NBA right now is in pretty much, even if the Sonics came back, the NBA is in a state of unwatchableness. I mean, it is the NBA right now is dying. It is in just as bad a state as I've seen in my lifetime, as far as where the game is at, how they're playing the game, the 175 3-point tosses up you see every single game, the lack of any kind of physicality or playing any kind of defense. You win a championship right now in the NBA, and it's kind of like, oh, great, what did you do? You know, it's almost like not an accomplishment at this point. It's just about feels like. With the Mariners, if they were to win a World Series, they would be rewarded for being cheapskates and for not rewarding their fans for jamming the stadium and doing all they can to support their team. And I don't want them to be rewarded for that. So we come back around to the Seahawks. Give me another Super Bowl, baby. Give me another Super Bowl, feed me. I'll see if I can maybe throw a quick poll up here in a sec. Let me get up to the donations and we'll maybe push something in here. But thank you for the donations and the support. Give me another Seahawk title, though. Jordan, thank you for the 12 months as a Hawks Nest member of the channel. I did not know I've been a member for 12 months. Laughing out loud. Well, thank you for that long-time support, Jordan. And if you are thinking about, want to be a member of the channel, we just released out Monday morning PFF grades. After the game, we're going to be doing Thursday night football. We've got a call-in show here in about another week here just after Christmas. We're going to be doing for members of the channel, and we're going to continue to really expand that here as we get into the off-season, by the way. So keep your membership benefits going. We'll be having some special shows lined up for you guys on that side of it here soon. But thank you, Jordan, for that long-time commitment here at the channel. John Naylor, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, agree. Look at what Coach Gibbs and what he did with the quarterbacks, Theismann, Williams, Schrader. 3 good, not great quarterbacks. Ooh, I love that. I love that that draw there, John. And John's speaking about to Coach Gibbs and the Washington Redskins in the it was a late 80s to early 90s, where they were able to get a couple of Super Bowl wins. And you were able to do it without having, guys that were necessarily those guys. And that's just a one representation of it, John. As far as like, here's just one example of it, but there's an example of it where it worked over multiple different teams. Well, I like it. I love it about your example as well there, because it worked over multiple teams, not multiple teams of multiple different teams, but you have the same head coach using the same principle with multiple different quarterbacks over multiple different teams. That he had a standard and a style of way of winning, and he was going to use that, and that he could fit these different quarterbacks in. And that they weren't bad quarterbacks. They were solid quarterbacks in addition to that, but you didn't need them to be star quarterbacks. And I think that that's a great example. I think that there's many, many more beyond that we could go to. A Phil Simms, for instance, a Jeff Hostetler. There's another guy in Bill Parcells who wins multiple Super Bowls with the New York Giants. Different teams, a couple years difference between them, with 2 different quarterbacks, able to go get the Super Bowl win because the team was strong enough around those quarterbacks to go get it done and make it happen. And it goes beyond this too, John, like we've talked about. We've been 3 Super Bowls in Seahawks history. 3 Super Bowls in Seahawks history. At no point in time when you went to any of those 3 Super Bowls did you have a quarterback that was that star quarterback carrying the day for you. And this isn't over a 50-year period, by the way. This is within the last 20 years. Again, I go to it where, John, there's so much times when I try to make this argument to people in my chat, they'll push back to me on this, who will say, no, and I don't get why. It's like, this is recent data. This is, you've done it this way. There's other teams that have done it this way. And they'll look at you like you're just crazy. No, you have to get the QB. No, it's all about that quarterback. It's that thing I talk about where I think that there's really a bit of a broken outlook and view of the quarterback position right now. And how much really they sway, they hold over the top of football teams and their ability to, single-handedly kind of carry the day, John. And I'm growing more and more reticent to believe that they carry the day as much as some people would have us believe on their outlook of it. Phoebe, thank you for the $2 donation. You watched Jaden Daniels lately? He's been looking, okay. He's come down to earth a little bit. And I think part of what happens when you saw him early in the season is he was throwing predominantly just to his right. He wasn't working much of the left side of the field. And I wonder if, people start to scout him. And this is what happens if you're good out the gate, you play a lot of football, get a good 7-8 games. We got data to start to take away now your tendencies and force you to do what you don't want to do. In Jaden's case, throw to your left. And maybe he's not been as comfortable in doing that. And he's a unique talent in that way of, give him more of that tape on him. Now you can start to get a better plan illustrated for how to go after him. But he's come down to earth a little bit on that one. They definitely do feel good about having him there, though, in the now, and I'm sure in the long-term future and what he's going to bring. I do still worry about him long-term as far as how that body's going to hold up, though. Because he is skinny. John, thank you for the $2 donation. It says, zig when others zag. Let him chase the next Mahomes. Bingo, man. Bingo. That's where I come down to in my belief of this, of few teams take this approach because not just a majority, but a major swath of the sport is chasing the next Mahomes. They're all zagging. Zag, 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 zag. All of them. And you can see it in their approach. And you can see it like a Cardinal team that'll draft a Josh Rosen and then they're right back on Kyler Murray the year after. Zag, 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 zag. Where they're hitting that drum over and over, hoping that will save the day for them. They get that done, and then, they'll get the other stuff done then after that. And so that's why I'm getting caught up on this, is that I see so many teams taking that approach, and you can go this alternative, this approach, where few are going down it. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be easier, but I look at that as a market opportunity then. Or because we're doing this and there are so few teams that are doing it that way, if we do it and we do get it right, we can get the best possible outcome from it. Because there's not 20 other teams chasing the same thing the way we are. It's a little bit like, John, it's like this. When you were a 4-3 team for Carroll walking in and you went to the 4-3 defense, it was at a time when the NFL was proliferated by 3-4 defenses. So part of what helped you in those drafts when you walked in and you were picking guys and looking through who you wanted to add to your defensive line, and when you're looking in free agency for guys you could bring to your defensive line, like an Avrils and like a Michael Bennett's at that time, because those guys weren't 3-4 guys, they were pure 4-3 guys, you had so much more of a pick of the litter of potential guys in draft and in free agency because you had the league rocking with 70% of them in the 3-4 look at that time. And this is kind of an offshoot of that in a different way. And to me, that's where, hey, this will make it easier for us to build a team, and we're going this way and everyone else is going that way, and they're all clogged up and they can't get through the door, and there's like a line getting out the door because they're all trying to fit through that same door, and we'll take this path over here. I like the idea of it. I really do. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, thanks for having my back lately. I appreciate it. Oh, brother, I got your back always, Phoebe. You're one of my OGs in this chat, one of my great supporters in this chat, a great guy as well on top of that, and I'll always have your back. So always, man, always. And I appreciate you riding with me over there on that roundtable show, and I think we look at this thing and the outlook in a lot of the same way too, on top of it, Feed Me. So appreciate you, man. Thank you for all you do for this channel, brother. Really, really, really do appreciate it. You guys make this thing go. You allow me to do what I get to do here, and I would not be able to do it like I do on it. I tell you, I'm trying to structure up again, trying to get these things done for like these behind enemy lines with people during this year. It's been tough. People have got, and it's not because people aren't trying or doing what they can. It's just that so many of these folks, I think, have the job thing going on, and they're trying to do the channel at the same time. And it's like, I've got from 5:30 to 5:45, I've got 15 minutes, so it's where I really get to appreciate on that in doing this, where I get to just, hey, we get to go live every time, all the time. And I always got that freedom where I don't have that second job there pulling and yanking at me. So it's something every day I wake up, I'm appreciated by it. Don't have to get up, go to a desk, go to a cubicle, deal with customers. So appreciate you for that. And I always got your back, brother. Always. I know you got mine. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, we zigged when building in 2012. Bingo. You're touching exactly upon the same thing I'm speaking about here too, with that 4-3 defense. Everybody's out there looking for their 3-4, and they want to run the blitz heavy stuff, and they want to get real super. At that time, everything was really extremely about being complicated defensively wise and running a lot of different mix of stuff. And we're going to go back to the simplicity of things and that 4-man fronts and guys with their hands in the dirt. And I've said often on this, John, a guy that puts his hand in the dirt and is a defensive end that does that is not necessarily going to be a guy that's always going to be able to just stand up and operate out of a wide 9 and be just as good operating out of a wide 9. Sometimes those can be two different skill sets that you're operating off of. And they did. They totally zigged at that time when everybody was zagging. They didn't chase the quarterback because you landed Russell Wilson, but at no point in time were you chasing the star quarterback. So that's why I say this was a real purposeful approach by the team 10 years ago, where if you had seen them trying to draw up for that star quarterback guy, you would have seen them package picks up to go get that guy. And instead, they didn't ever pivot in that direction. They more went to a sort of strength of numbers game with it, where it's Tavares Jackson, it's Flynn, and then we'll draft Russell Wilson, and we'll let the best man play out, but we'll have such a great team. As long as that best man out can be functional, our team can go out there and fly. And it was proven to be the case. And I think that it's a philosophy that's not so ancient, being that it was only 10 years ago, that it can't work once again. Thank you, though, John. Appreciate you. Jordan, thank you for the $20 donation. Oh, man. Very kind of you, Jordan. Very, very kind of you. He says, I was in a bad mood the last few days after what I witnessed on Sunday. I view this team on life support, and I think we have a Falcons game where the heartbeat starts getting louder as the game goes on. I like it, man. I do like it, Jordan, and you're right. A life support metaphor is a great one here to be applied, because you are sitting there going, okay, is this thing going to go? Are we going to be able to get up off this table and actually find our footing this season and make some noise still this year? And I hope they do. I hope you're right about that. I think that the thing with this team, and I said this in the wrap-up video, and it's not empty talk. It's really where I see on this team this year, and that you've wanted to find your identity rise up from this team. Who are we? What are we? Not in the, we're a dominant team, we're a first place team. Who are we? How do we win football games? What is the blueprint for us coming through games to come out with the victory? You know, what are the parts of our team that drive our team versus the other parts of our team? And instead of that, we've seen a lot of Jordan, times the defense carries, at times the offense carries. At times you have all three phases of the football team working together. But you haven't really had an identity that's risen up throughout the year. You just haven't, except for resiliency. The amount of times you've come back in football games with fourth quarter comebacks. The amount of times this team has looked dead in the water, but come back. I mean, those, what was it? I think 4 straight losses there before that Falcons game, where it's brutal as can be, horrible losses, embarrassing losses over and over again. You're looking at it and you're going, boy, all right, I guess we're done. But then that resiliency came back to the front. They refound it, went, okay, let's refine ourselves here. Found your Falcons game. Then you come back, you lose that next game in Buffalo, and go, oh, no, it was really, that's what we were. No, it was that. That was really what we were. And then, bam, you find back that resiliency once again. And so we would like this season to be prettier. We'd love to be on top of this division riding high at this point, already carrying the day, maybe even being in the mix for the first round bye. That's what you'd like. That's what you prefer. But resiliency can get you through these 3 games. And Jordan, they do control their fate over these last 3 games. We're not relying on this team to lose, and then as long as we do this and they do that and that team does this, then we get in. That's not the case here. You win your 3 games, and that Bears game is very winnable. These other two games are going to be tough. You put yourself behind that 8 ball. You put yourself in this position. You're losing the Giants at home. You put yourself in this position. But you do control your own fate. And the team has been very resilient. And I come back to that, and that does give me a little bit of hope on this one going into it, Jordan. Because I was like you in a mood coming out the last game where I go, man, it wasn't as much just that you lost the Packers. Understandable to lose to a good Packer team, even at home. I can make my peace with that. It's to get really by and large embarrassed by that Packer team after you've had so many games this year already where you were embarrassed by and what you had thought you had built out of. Like we'd put that behind us. Like that was 2 months ago. That was us 2 months ago. This is the new us, right? We've been in the gym. We've been working out. Here's the new us. Look at us. Here's my selfie. Check it out. And then said you went right back. You seem to have slid right back into exactly what you had been in that Detroit game on the road. So I think the bad mood is valid. I was in a bit of that state myself coming off the end of it. Like, man, you did everything yourself to put yourself in that position, and then you just didn't show up. You just didn't seem to show up for the game. That's tough. But resiliency overwhelms this at the end of the day, Jordan. Resiliency. You still control this. You can still overcome this, and this is a team that still keeps fighting. As bad as it may get, and look, it's as bad. If you want to see a team that had every right at certain times after certain bad games that were just so putrid to look at, so badly played all the way down the line, that would pack it in and go, okay, this isn't our year, and come back that next week and not practice it hard and not bounce back or really try, but just kind of go through the motions and go, let's just get through this year. This team should have taken that chance by this point, because there's been plenty of those games for them to take that opportunity, and they haven't, Jordan. So I'm in the same place you are. It is on life support. Still got some hope there with this team, but no more room for error. You got to lock it in, and you better lock it in fast now at this point. Really appreciate you, though, for that, Jordan. Thank you for the $20 donation. That is very, very kind of you. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. It says a year and a half ago, Bills fans wanted Josh Allen gone. Yeah, we were kind of talking a little bit about, he's got a laughing emoji on the end of that. And yeah, we were talking a little bit about the start of the year of that being a possibility if they were going to look to maybe do something like that after this year, if we wanted to jump into the mix of that. And that was out there a little bit because you were hearing some of the kerfuffle for some of the Bills fans out there on that. And I think that is a little bit of an example of, I think, the larger problem at play that's going on here right now that you're touching upon, King, that you guys are doing great on the donations, but also within your donations, I think of marrying a lot of the points I'm trying to make to exactly what the problem is at hand in regards to this quarterbacking issue in the NFL and the fans' outlook and front office's outlook and pundits' outlook to the position, where the expendability of it, you get a young guy in, he sinks or swims right out the gate. If he doesn't swim right out the gate, then he's trash and you need to toss him, right? That's expendable. A guy like Josh Allen that had played all that good football, but man, the turnovers, man, we just can't come over that. So it's like, maybe we just got to look to something else. And you know, it's one where it's not one that's helping, I think, fans out or any pundits or any front offices with this expendable nature to the position in this way. It's the hardest position to play in the sport. There's more on your shoulders to have to take on as a burden than any other position in the sport. It requires both leadership, intelligence from the neck up, and then the physical skill set to be able to pull off the game plan in addition to that, which also makes it unique from other positions in the sport. And it's one where it's nothing that is as simple as people try to make it to be, I think, King. And that's where a lot of the drive comes down to, is they'll look at a guy like Allen last year and you see you go take a look at one of those Bills fans that were maybe down on Allen and maybe a little open to moving Allen at that point in time. And you would hear them come up with arguments that were very simplistic in favor of moving Allen. It wouldn't be a complex, in-depth study of the player breaking down A, B, C, D, and all of this stuff here that he does. And then there's this part of it. And then we come out to the end of it and you say, well, after we put all of this into consideration, here's how I got to the point of being ready to move on from Josh Allen. Instead, it would be something along the lines of, he turns the ball over too much. And that's the key here for you folks. When you're in these debates with fellow people on these kind of discussions and situations when it comes to the quarterback, and you find them going to some simplified point and they can't cogently build an argument up with a lot of different individual points, that's where you know that they're not looking at the position in the right manner, that they're looking with that simplified view, which is the wrong view, and it's going to lead you astray, as it would have led those Bills fans astray and that Bills organization astray if they had led into that saying, well, too many turnovers, let's move Josh Allen. And they'd be looking like idiots if they had done that. And that's one reason you want to be very careful in your assessment of these quarterbacks and make sure you're right about it, because they're hard to find good ones. There's other things that can affect their level of play that's not just purely them out on the wing dribbling around the guy in front of them. And that just gets lost in the sauce, I think, just too often, King. Great point, though. Great point. VV More Seahawks, thank you for the $5 donation. Feed me. Says Jake was trying to give love for JSN, and you couldn't stop talking about DK, laughing out loud, but it seemed like they were confused when DK doubled was mentioned. Well, he said, is he receiver one now on the team? And you're not receiver one if I just don't think he's receiver one, just because even if you get more productivity than the other guy, if you're getting a lot of freedom pulled from you from that number one guy, and that's opening things up for you, then I don't know if I go purely to be a number one guy at that point. Does JSN, if there is no DK purely and he's just running through the back of the schedule, does he put up all of these statistics and do what he's done without DK out there? I don't know. Yeah, I might have on it, but that's where I was hearing it seemed like to me, it was more of like he had ascended past DK on that. And I don't know that that's really the case on that one. I don't. But some of this goes beyond just pure productivity of the position and one guy putting up this catches and one guy putting up this yardage. Some of this is targets. Some of this is usage. It's like I was talking to him. Some of this is JSN going and doing what he's doing out of the slot, has removed some of DK's slot snaps, and you're not putting him in there now as much, and him in movement and motion's not happening as much. He's fitting back more to his typical X kind of position as the years gone along, which has been great for JSN, but that also means now DK's back to being double teamed all the time. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was taking that one differently. Maybe I was being a bit defensive on that one. Jordan says, I rewatched the game and I came off surprisingly more hopeful. Outside of Woolen, the defense looked like they were trying, but they were over pursuing and it came off as just too much juice instead of playing sound. My assessment as well. I think Hall has a lot of physical talent, maybe more than Mafe, but I think Boye uses his head better and is doing a better job setting the edge this year. Yeah. I don't know if I'd put Hall ahead of Boye Mafe as far as talent. I think Boye probably is more talented than Hall. Not by a lot, necessarily. And they're very close, but he's more advanced. I think when I look at Hall through year 2, I don't know if I see a lot of advancement from him off the edge. Mafe's use of hands, his work with BT Jordan, the pass rushing specialist, and some of the stuff that he took from BT Jordan, I don't see as much of that from Hall. Hall just seems like kind of a pure power guy that doesn't use his hands very much and doesn't have a lot of counters that he can draw upon. He also doesn't seem to be quite as strong for being a power guy in the pass rush game as an edge run defender. And I don't know what to make of that. SL Hazard over under. We see Kevin O'Connor flirting with Geno post game like he does with every quarterback. Hey, always be selling. Always be selling. ABC. Sentai Donnie, how you doing, man? Kevin says it would be an absolute dream for Geno to win a Super Bowl just to shut everyone down. I would love it. I would so love it. On like 5 different levels. But yeah, it'd feel good for Geno too. Femi says, Hawksnest, I was talking about the roundtable and the evaluation in quarterbacks, not talking about the O-line. Talking about the O-line account. Let me see what you were saying on that. Because they don't think O-line is important. Oh, they don't think O-line is important. You're speaking about the roundtable doesn't. Yeah, they don't think O-line is important. I think that that's a little bit of the case in there. I think also it's there's a disconnect on the roundtable discussions from those guys understanding, and I've tried to lay it out to them, but I get glazed over eyes when I mention it, and that's that this isn't just merely like a bad line. This is one of the worst offensive lines in the sport. And you just go, it's you guys. No quarterback is doing well behind this line. And the fact that Geno's been able to hold the line while the line sucked this bad is more noteworthy than it is than you picking at Geno. That's the whole point of this, is that their whole forefront of this is to pick at Geno and completely overlook that offensive line. And my point is to say, look at how this guy's doing amidst this offensive line like this. And what happens if you gave that guy actually a functional offensive line? And then what I see oftentimes gets turned as far as when I have this discussion with Hawk fans is then they'll say, well, no quarterback's got a dominant offensive line. And then I got to go, no. I didn't say dominant offensive line. I didn't say top 5 offensive line. I didn't say everything had to be perfect around Geno for him to succeed. I said very specifically, give him a middle of the road offensive line all the way around, run blocking, pass blocking. And what would he do with that then? And if you don't think that we would see the best Geno Smith that we've ever seen, we're not seeing the same quarterback playing the sport on that one. But you've never been able to give him that in 3 years that he's been playing this position. Instead, you've given him the other end of that scale time and time again. Daddy Dennis says Pennington may early career may have had a better arm. He might have. I'm torn on that one, Daddy. Thing I do keep coming back to with Pennington is at least he was able to throw through the wind of that New York stadium. That's not easy. I don't know if Purdy could do that. SL says this is probably Lockett's last home game. Hope he goes for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. That'd be cool. I'd love to see it. Jordan says this game feels like a game where Grubb can flourish because of how much the Vikings try to do. You'd hope. Spread system going up against a blitz-heavy scheme. On the surface of it, that would work in the favor of the offensive coordinator, Jordan, to your point. Brian says, Hawksnest, how long do you think you're going to go tonight? I've got a grandson's jazz band from 7 to 8. Yeah, we're going to probably be right around 8-ish or so tonight or so. Kind of depends. I don't know if we'll be going super late tonight, though. We'll feel it out. Nick says, I never want to see Sam Howell play for us again. I have no idea why John thought giving up a third for him was a swell idea. I didn't think he was going to look that bad when he went out there. I'm sure John didn't either. But, whoo. O'Dwyer, the O-line is atrocious, but I feel like Grubb hasn't made adjustments to help them either. He's left 3/4 string tackles on islands, which is insane. Agreed. I think that's where, and at that monsoon you're asking above, why move on Grubb? I think that if it comes down to moving on Grubb, it's going to come from a lack of his working around this line's limitations. Not that he was just, can't explain just away the line, that you also kind of put them in this position where you knew you had a guy, Exhibit A, that was not going to be a good player for the position out there on the day, who's going to have a tough time, and you sort of said, well, figure it out. And it's not going to probably embolden a lot of confidence from McDonald when he goes back and looks at the tape at some of these games because of that. Modu says, in the deep passing routes on short yards with no quick outlets, Grubb just not ready for the NFL. That too. A lot of 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2s, let's push the ball down the field thing. Silliness sometimes. Silliness. Nacho says, I'd rather the stadium be completely empty than opponents' fans running our house. Me too. Me too. It's brutal looking at the Bills fans taking over just huge parts of the stadium. Niner fans taking over this past week. Like, that hurts my heart to see that. Sel Hazard, 15 years of promoting Seattle as a prime, beautiful destination for transplants. We'll do that. I suppose so. Daddy Dennis, we as Seattle fans have always been loud for one main reason. It annoys our rivals in the Bay Area. You tripping shorty. Is ownership not insulted that these fans are stacking money, selling our team out? I would hope that they are. It's an NFL league-wide problem to a degree on this, where this is more of an outlet and extension of NFL policy and where they want to go with it. But if there's something that ownership can do at this point, you sure hope that this has reached a point of, okay, beyond the pale, we've got to deal with this. We got to stop acting and sticking our fingers in our ears and acting like it doesn't exist. And we've got to start taking steps to make sure that this doesn't happen, or we're going to lose this great home field advantage that's been a part of our cherished history, to the point that we retired a number to the fan base because of it. It's like, you get two ways on this. You don't get a fake play that there's a 12th man if you're not going to allow the 12th man to have true relevancy within that stadium. So pick a lane on that one, Jody, is what I would say to that. I'll be right back. I'm going to get a little more coffee, folks. Martin Luther King, taking emotions out of it. Would Debo make sense if Lockett retires? Nah. Debo Samuel is the quintessential example of a player getting paid big money and dialing it down. You know, losing the hunger, wanting to be great, fighting there. I mean, and it's wild to watch with Debo because that was a guy that you could watch who could get a touch in the open field 3 or 4 years ago. And it was like his life was on the line when the ball was in his hands. If somebody tackled him, he was going to die. And now you see a guy that gets tackled all the time by the first guy rallying up in space to try to bring him to the ground. He doesn't separate as a wide receiver. He's not refined his skill set as a wide receiver. And, you know, some of it probably too here, King, is that he's lost a little bit of some of probably his quickness and speed with how they used him and overused him early on in his time there in San Francisco. But nah. He's done. Well, maybe not done, but I wouldn't want to be. The marginal ability he can bring at this point is not worthwhile for me. Roused about for fun. I hope they can buckle down and play some good defense. Urgent defense. Urgency as a team. Roused about. I'd say that. You know, bring out the trick plays. Bring it all out this week. I mean, it reminded me of Donald, and you had times this year where you had been unwilling to blitz. It's like, well, it might be the game to start whipping it out and bringing it out. Jefferson or Addison notwithstanding. SL Sonics will definitely come back. NBA is having viewership issues and too much talent teams can't afford to pay with the new CBA. Might just. I think that's been the issue, though, here, SL, as to why you haven't seen more of an announcement for either Vegas or the Sonics at this point. Is because the NBA, with some of the retention they're having and some of the lowering of the ratings, are going, well, how do we expand right now when we're not exactly lighting the world on fire? Arturo, Hawks Nest. If I buy a ticket, I'm going to the game. 12th man only exists in Seattle. Agreed. I'm the same way, man. I would never buy a game and scalp and do it like people have done. I'm, you know, maybe every once in a while you can understand if you got some emergency situation or something, but that's not what's happening here. That's obviously not what's happening here. Got a whole nother ball of wax on this one. Bronze Sausage has got to play better at home to earn the fan base's trust back. Also, lower the damn ticket prices. It's insane how much they cost. Certainly would love to see him lower the ticket prices. This is where one goes into the other. You allow the fans to resell the tickets. You sell more season tickets. You sell more season tickets. There's less secondary tickets that are going to go on the market that aren't. I'm not talking about the resells. I'm just talking about the pure tickets that are for sale on a Sunday basis. With the scarcity of those tickets, supply and demand, those tickets will cost more. So these issues, then they backtrack, adhere to these fans being allowed to resell the tickets, do come back in conjunction, Bronze Sausage, with the fact that you're allowing them to resell the tickets, these season ticket holders. So it all does kind of connect a little bit. As far as the gotta play better at home to earn the fan base's trust back, here's what I can say to that, Bronze, is that this is a new younger generation thing, okay? In the 80s, we weren't good. We showed up in the stadium. We screamed our butts off. It wasn't necessarily cheap going into downtown Seattle. If you're coming out, let's say from Everett, you had to pay parking prices at that time. Has it gotten more expensive? Sure. Was it expensive a little bit at that time? Sure, it was. It wasn't cheap. The 90s, the dark ages for Seahawks football. Maybe when the team was moved to University of Washington and they were out of their stadium because they were building a new stadium, you could have found some times there where the fan base wasn't as connected, but when they were in the stadium, they were loud. The stadiums weren't taken over at that time by the opposition. And people still in that 90s showed up and they were loud. Early 2000s, showed up at the stadium and were loud. So the thing with this, and you're not alone in saying it, Bronze, it's something I've heard from other people, but for me, that's an old head, you know, us old heads that get a little bit in that I don't get this kind of thing. You got Generation 1, late 70s, early 80s, not a good team. You've got an expansion franchise, crap stadium, screaming their brains out, showing up to the stadium, doing everything they can. You got late 80s Seahawk that I think maybe had one division title to that late 80s to the early 90s. People walked in that stadium, Bronze, didn't need to have them play better at home. They showed up in that stadium. They screamed their brains out. They gave the players all they could in support to help them through in those games. Early to mid 90s, They showed up in that stadium. They did all they could. They screamed their brains out. Early 2000s, mid 2010s, 2013, 2014, 2015. Now somewhere about 16, 17, I'm starting to hear from these people that tell me now there's this new thing where they've got to earn my right to be in that home stadium. They got to earn that right. Yeah, I know that there's only going to be about 7 games a year, 8 games a year in the home stadium. This ain't Mariner baseball, for instance, where you got 81 games. There's 8, 9 games you're going to get in your home stadium a year. But that's evidently too much. Like now there's this new thing where they've got to win on top of it. This is a new fan thing, Bronze. That's what I'm trying to say on this. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I truly am. But you also have to understand from my perspective that this thinking is a new thinking for modern fandom. Prior generations and many generations over didn't think this way. This is a new thought process. And I don't know if it's the best thought process because teams are going to go up and they're going to go down. And if you buy a ticket, go to the game. Don't buy the ticket and then, well, let me see where the team's at. If they're good, then I'll go to it. And if they're bad, then I'm going to sell it to another opposition fan base. That's not being a fan, especially when you're costing the ambience, you're costing the environment, costing the tradition. It's not a good enough excuse for me on that one, especially when it didn't seem to be one that the prior generations needed to lean on. They were good with going to that stadium, win or lose, team good or bad. Lewis says, grew up lucky. Late uncle took me to a game in the Kingdome. We beat the Raiders at home, and it was loud. You better believe it. One Kingdome game, there's not one game in the Kingdome in the 80s. Your Seahawks, you would go into, and I went to many games in the 80s, where there was one game I walked into that was never as loud as possibly could be, where those fans weren't doing all they could. And there was a lot of years in the 80s where we weren't good. You got your 83 where you got the conference championship. You have another couple years in there where you're pretty decent. Aside from that, you weren't particularly good through the 80s necessarily. But that didn't cause the fans back then to flicker, you know? You tripping Shorty says, why don't they take a look at the fat wait list? That'd be a good way to go at this. I think punishing fans for reselling tickets would be also a way to go about this. I would revoke if I'd have people spotting it throughout a game. I'd spend money on one spotter and be like, your whole job through the game is going to every week to look at the game. And if we see somebody sending people's tickets for a game that are in the colors of this, we revoke their tickets the next year. They're no longer season ticket holders. Bye. You know? War Chief B. These seat Judas make my stomach turn. They would sell their dearly departed daddy's classic hot rod to make a profit without a second thought. Much of the new generation is different. That's great comparison with the daddy's hot rod. Exactly. What am I going to do with it? I mean, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, it was cherished for him, but who cares? He's gone. It's so true, War Chief. So true. SL, I watched the final game of the NBA Cup, Bucks versus the Thunders. It was boring as F. I was distracted most of the game and then got out of it hand. Yeah, I've had a hard time in some of the NBA games. Just you watch the guy walk up the court. Some guy sets a screen. He launches a 30-footer. Rebound comes off. Next guy walks up the court, launches a 27-footer. Another rebound comes off. Next guy walks up the court. No ball movement. Not even really any, sometimes dribbling, just throwing it up. Just hucking it up. Pumpkin's amazing. Brandon's all right. That's true. SL Analytics ruined sports. Everything got homogenized. Every team is practically playing the same way with the same exact concepts. Definitely done a lot of that to baseball and basketball, that's for sure. Football is a little harder to do that with, but maybe it comes around that way too. Yeah, Pumpkin's definitely deviant up today. She doesn't want to come out. She doesn't want to come out. Dar says when the Hawks decide to let go of Geno and don't have an O-line ready to go, don't have an O-line be ready to have a losing season. The upside is that draft picks will be in the top 10. It will probably go that way if they don't get the line figured out. That's why it's got to be priority number one, Dara. Just as a reminder, guys, if you have any exact questions or comments you want me to read, if you can, just put Brandon B in the chat so I know it's definitely guided for me to mention. Daddy Dennis says, I think it shows a lot about the difference between the Niners and the Seahawks that how they handled the guy quitting in the season. Williams left and it was all love and hope for him. Niners linebacker quits and they stand in line to ridicule him. Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a different reaction with that Niner team too in the moment there. It was such a brutal timing from his part because if he hadn't quit, he would have been back in that game and could have helped them to go win that game. I mean, that's where it really stands out too. But you're right, two different organizations and how they dealt with that. And the linebacker for the Niners, Campbell's just ridiculous on that one on so many levels because he knew that coming in that Greenlaw was coming back at some point in the season, and to act like you didn't know that and then throw a tantrum, it's just ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. Gibson says the way the O-line has issues, but the way Green Bay just pounded the ball the first two drives with little resistance shows we also have issues with our front seven, and tackling is a problem. Yeah, you started out really rough in this game, Gibson. I mean, they did find a way as we went over the course of the game to figure a little bit of this out. So, I mean, that's where, you didn't allow it to be an issue throughout the whole course of the game. Jacobs, 14 carries, 73 yards in that first half, 12 carries, 21 yards in the second half. So you found an answer there. And where they've been with run game recently has been pretty good. That's been the part that has stayed pretty strong. So I would take, with the prior 4 games, we'd take the second half and then you take that first half. Do you say that that's emblematic of a bigger issue at play, that first half is more of what we should see going forward? Or will we take more of that 4 games plus the second half and what we saw from the defense as a general rule of thumb on this one? We'll see if it holds. We'll see if they can hold up. They've got a challenge again this week against the Vikings, who run the ball pretty well in this, Gibson. I think the issue with the O-line is that it is as the forefront of this team right now. And you really could make the argument with the O-line, especially in pass protection, that they're coming off their worst game, at least from a pass blocking efficiency standpoint. It's like you've been bad all throughout the year, and then you had maybe your worst performance on top of it. That'll be a little bit more of the centerpiece point at times in what we're talking about because of that, in this moment at least. Will Hendrickson, that flag behind you, sick. Where'd you get it? I believe you can get it off Amazon. I think they still sell it out there. King says people keep doing the Marshawn Lynch gonad grab. Kind of cheapens the history of the celebration now. I don't know. I kind of like it when it's a Seahawks player doing it. It's kind of a nice nod to him. God's Gang, thank you for the $2 donation. Says Jefferson could put up 200 yards against us. Laughing out loud. I mean, maybe. I think you've got some ways to be able to deal with him pretty well. I mean, he gets matched up with Witherspoon. I think Witherspoon will give as good as he gets. And if he gets to the outside and you put him out there, you've got some ability with Woolen and be a guy that can stay with him, I think, reasonably well. But we'll see. I mean, the team's big problem, God's Gang, has been defensively really in stopping the run more than it's letting pass catchers go crazy on him. I mean, who's really gone off on us this year as a receiver as you go through the games? You know, you've done a pretty good job, and overall in general, defensively, in keeping passing yardage pretty well stamped down for the most part. But Jefferson's as tough a chest as you're going to get throughout the course of the year at the receiver position. He can operate from the inside. He can operate from the outside. They've got plays that are set up to just free him up in particular. Addison's enough of a counter puncher there where you can't just double team and bracket him. And we've talked about it. It's hard to bracket those slot receivers consistently. It's much easier to do it on the outside with those wide receivers that you can press off the line of scrimmage. So you got to have a plan to deal with them, that's for sure. But I'd be surprised if he came out with 200 yards. As good as he is, I think the team does pretty good on their defense on even really good wide receivers for the most part. I think of how many challenges we've had. Like Tyreek Hill didn't go off for a lot against us. Granted, you didn't have a good quarterback out there, but I think we'll do pretty good against him. And I think Witherspoon matches up well with him in the slot. Thank you, God's Gang. Daddy Dennis says, love the Husky Stadium Seahawks games. Yeah, Warren Moon, man. Wish we had him there in his prime. Braun Sausage says, the way fans are in the 21st century is, what have you done for us lately? I suppose so. And that's maybe a place where Braun's eye is an old head, you know, and a guy that, you know, loves to wax on about the old times and the old ways and all that. And, you know, I'm fitting into a little bit of that archetype, I suppose, on this, you know, and where maybe I just need to, you know, let the old thing go a little bit, you know, and just be realistic about it. It could be that too, but I think you're probably right. I think that this has just been a change, and it's just startling one. It really is, because it's kind of come out of nowhere, and it's one where you're like, wait, huh? But you're probably right. You're probably right. I don't like fans that in the stadium anyways. You won't be loud anyway. Stay home. SL Hazard entitled like that is so disgusting. Spitting in the face of fan base whose teams actually suck for generations like the Jets and Browns. Yeah, that's the tough part too, is you go, well, they got to do something for me recently. You mean like go win a Super Bowl in the last 10 years? Yeah, if they'd done that, then maybe they'd earn some of that goodwill from me. So yeah, it is also like, well, where does that line exist at on they got to do something, you know, well, they need to be 13-3, you know, they need to start out 8-1, and then they'll have earned it to me at that point, you know. That's where it starts to get ridiculous in that line you look at on what it is that they have to do to legitimize themselves for the fans to go and see them in the games, not sell their tickets. Good point there, Hazard. Ran the Cat, I showed up when we were 4-6 facing down the mighty Whiners, and we ended up winning. On a goal line stand, the whole building was shaking. Even compared to 5 years ago, it changed. Yeah. Jordan says the hard part about that is if you don't go to the game, someone can just sit in your seat. Yeah, it'd probably be hard to do it. You probably couldn't do it like you do Vegas where you're trying to catch cheaters, you know. You just got a binoculars guy. It'd probably be hard to pull it off on that, but there feels like at least there's some steps, even if you can't clean the whole problem up, there's some things you can do, at least in general terms, to kind of stem the tide a bit, maybe. Sean says, I remember when the Seahawks struggled to get to 5 wins in a season. Exactly. We've had some dark eras here in Seattle. Some real tough football we've had to sit through and watch. Bronze feels like every time we're talking about the stadium being taken over, it's when they face top tier fandoms. Bills and Packers both have high level of fans. IMO. Yeah. Or 49ers too. And certainly those fan bases like the Cardinals, the Rams are probably not going to do it as much. But is this also going to start to be more of a growing issue too? Daddy Dennis, ancient Seahawkers sitting around chatting about the team. This is why we invented the internet. There we go. Appreciate you, Daddy Dennis. AI says we have to win out to make the playoffs. 10 wins won't get it done. Agreed. Yep. You're going to have to win out to make this happen. There's no way through it. 3-0. 3-0. And it's unfortunately I was too young to experience the kingdom. My throwback jerseys, Hasselbeck, Alexander uniforms. Well, it's been a ways back now, you know. We're quite old, those of us that were in that kingdom. Feeling that age every day. Alan says, TBH, realistically, I'd be happy with 10 wins this season, with it being McDonald's first year and all, but second, I expect playoffs. I think that's fair. The year you've had this year, the next step should be getting to the playoffs. Bash M, my guy, I haven't been on a stream in a while. How have you been? Bash, I'm loving life, man. It's been a crazy year. We picked up a lot of different extra streams, doing these guest appearances now, and channel's rocking and rolling to almost 20,000 subscribers. And, the team's not maybe running a little bit out of gas here at the end, but as far as where I'm at, I'm loving life. Everything's going great. Hope you're doing well, bro. Thanks for jumping back in. Phoebe says, besides mentioning O-line, what does John not do well? I still think he's a top 5 GM. Prove me wrong. I think he's got a lot that he's upper level on. You know, you're right about that. And that's where I'm still very much a supporter of him. Just comes back to that. Can you overcome what appears to be a bit of your Achilles heel right now, John? And that's the part where you just have to kind of address it. Look in-house, self-scout. Where am I weak? I think it's not going to be too hard for him to realize on this one at this point. David Flores, Brandon, are you worried about the weather playing a factor into Hawks' offensive efficiency if the weather is going to be monsoon-like? No, I think that would more work in our favor, David. I think the Vikings are a little bit more reliant, as funny as this is to say, on making the passing attack work. We have an offensive line in place and guys like Sahatoa and Lincoln Tomlinson up front who are built more to be run blockers. So if the game gets to being in monsoon-like conditions, you're going to be forced as an offensive coordinator to do more running. I think you're going to be able to, it's a little bit like the Cardinals game a little bit where the opposition's offense becomes neutralized. You just have to get enough done at that point. I like it working in our favor. I think it helps us out a little bit more and hinders the Vikings a little bit. It's not like it'll be a major advantage to us, David, but I think that it'd be a little bit of a minor advantage to us. Beamy says, I think what John does with the cap is hella underrated, but no one talks about that part of football as a business, by the way. Yeah. I mean, there's some things, I agree with your by and large take on this, where I think John does a lot of very good upper level things. I think his approach to free agency can sometimes be a little bit of a mixed bag, and how he spends his money, especially the heavy amount of 1-year deals that he hands out, these kind of prove-it deals, rather than getting guys on multi-year contracts, hasn't always exactly worked out either as well in his favor. As evidence, feed me by the Jerome Baker and the Dodson signing this offseason. It's not the best of approaches, but there's a lot he does well. And I think that, he gets contract extensions done in a timely way. Contract negotiations don't tend to be a problem here. Y2K, thank you for 18 months as a Hawks Nest member. Appreciate you for that. Before the year, we were expecting random crap games. Yeah. I think, too, we thought start of the year, both sides of the ball, it'll be probably a little bit rougher than it should finish up on as well. But you're expecting some inconsistency with a young team and a new first-time head coach. Long Live the King says, yeah, Kobe did the celebration. It was funny, but I've seen 3 other players do it. Yeah. I don't like other teams' players doing it. That's for sure. It should be just a Seahawk thing, but. Lou, Hawks Nest, where did you get that Boz t-shirt? Fan of the Boz. Got the Boz cut freshman year in high school. I would guess that this is actually done by Brian Bosworth still. He's such a good marketer. If you go to Amazon, you should be able to type in Brian Bosworth. It should be up there still. That's where I got it. Braun says, could the lack of fandom at home also be indicative of the Pete Carroll firing or even the distaste for Geno? Might be a stretch, but this fandom is weird. It's possible. I don't know for sure the reasoning behind, so I think anything sort of gets to be a bit in play on this one, Bronze, as far as a possibility goes to the situation. Maybe. Hard to say. I wouldn't be shocked if that was a big part of it. Not a big part, but a part of it, Bronze. There's probably not one specific thing as to the reasoning why, but, cost and all that other stuff. And certainly there's a contingent of the fan base that just isn't in on Geno. Allen says, remember the 2015 wild card game against the Vikings in the freezing cold? The Minnesota kicker missed the field goal to win the game. That was classic. It was classic. It's a good game. SL says SL says we beat the Vikings. We're getting the playoffs. Bears aren't a threat. Afterwards, should be ready for the Rams revenge showdown. I love the confidence. Let's go. Cam Robinson. Hope you're having a good one. Have a good night, man. Henry Mars says, what are your 3 keys for winning against the Vikings? Good question. I got it. I got my 3. First would be the first 2 would be offensively based, Henry. Commitment to the running game. You're going to have to be balanced in this game. You cannot get pass happy. How you deal with the blitz. How your offensive line deals with the blitz. How well does Geno recognize the blitz? How well does Ryan Grubb call a game to anticipate the blitzes he's going to face at a heavy amount from the Minnesota Vikings? And then the third one would be how you defend against, I was just thinking about that here. All right. Third one is how well you defend the run. Because you want to deal with Sam Darnold and you want to make Sam Darnold uncomfortable. It's going to be with those stack boxes and simulated pressures. But like you saw last week in the Packer game, if you can't stop the run and the Packers are going to get, or the Vikings are going to get into 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2s, you don't feel comfortable running those stacked boxes, or say nothing of the blitzes that you want to run either. So to do that, you got to stop them on 1st and 2nd down the run game to get to the 3rd and longs. And if you get 3rd and longs, you'll shut down that offense of the Vikings. You'll make Sam Darnold uncomfortable. You'll get him to throw an interception. He'll throw it up from time to time. And that Viking offensive line does not necessarily pass protect particularly well, but you got to earn the right to get there to that. So commitment of running the ball, how you deal with the Vikings blitz, and your ability to deal with the Vikings run game are really the three main points of coming away with this win, in my opinion. BB More Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. It says, okay, give John a break on T-Dot. No one expected that. Let's go to something else. Let's go outside of the recency moment here a little bit with this, if we can. So what I was kind of like trying to reference on this too with that one feed me was, and thank you for the donation. What I'm trying to reference on that, as always with it, is I'm never referencing just an individual situation. I gave you kind of 2 current examples of that, but that's not a recent situation in how he spent his money. So his offseason approach to free agency, like I said, for quite a bit of time here, has been 1-year deals. 1-year deals. So here's an offseason here, for instance, Phoebe, to give you an example of this, of not being a recency or just this year problem, but something that's been going on for a couple of years with John that's a valid criticism and something that you got to kind of point out and go, this is something that we could probably change and stop doing, quit it, stop it. That's the point of this, Phoebe, is not to shake the finger at John and to say, John, you don't build good an offensive line. You suck. It's to say, hey, this is wrong. Stop taking the same approach you're taking that you keep taking year after year after year after year after year again. It's not working as an approach. So when I talk about the one-year contracts in free agency, here's a given season in 2020, 4 years ago, where you have $50 million. You're supposedly at that point in the Russell Wilson prime. You're trying to maximize out that Russell Wilson prime. You're trying to put this team over the top with your signings. Do you go get good free agents? Do you go put on multi-year deals? Do you go and try to make it happen for the day? No. It's a one-year deal to Olsen at $6.9 million. It's a one-year deal to Bruce Irvin, $5.9 million. It's a one-year deal to BJ Finney, $3.5 million. It's a one-year deal to Brandon Shell, $3.5 million. It's a one-year deal to Quentin Dunbar, $3.4 million. It's a one-year deal to Jacob Hollister, $3.3 million. It's a one-year deal to Benson Mayoa, $3 million. It's a one-year deal to Carlos Hyde, $1 million. It's a one-year $2.5 million deal to Mike Iupati. 1 year deal to Cedric Abuhi, $2.2 million. 1 year to Brandon Jackson, $2.1 million. David Moore, 1 year deal on a $2.1 million deal, and a 1 year, $1 million deal to Geno Smith. And suddenly, look at that, the $50 million is gone. Gone. So why I hammer it is not to say John isn't a good GM. And I'm with you on this, Phoebe, and that I'm a proponent of John. I'm with John. I'm good with John. But John is trying to dance around this, spending money in free agency on a guy to get a multi-year deal done. And he's trying to do these prove-it deals, and he keeps trying to do it year after year. And it's not for the ultimate benefit. You might find that one success story. So given this list here, the one success story for the contracts given out in this deal, because for the Jaron Reed money you gave up, you really didn't get the returns back at that time for him. So the one success story you have of all these one-year deals on this one given year in 2020 was Brandon Shell. And then he's gone after the year, right? Because it's a one-year deal. So that's where there's got to be a change in the process too with me on this one. And yeah, Dotson's that way, Phoebe, but it's even in some of the 2-year deals you structured are really 1-year deals. The Rashawn Jenkins deal is really a 1-year deal. Kayvon Wallace, 1-year deal. Laken Tomlinson, 1-year deal. Connor Williams, 1-year deal. And when you do that 16 times over, suddenly you've just eaten up all of your cap in a really quick way, just like you see with this situation here. That's the problem with 1-year deals. You're not burying in the money across the board of the contract. You're all just eating all of it on that one first opening year, and it just the weight of it just weights down the rest of your cap and what you can do movement-wise. So it's just a little bit of what he's been rolling a little bit standard issue-wise recently on this. I understand that there's some hesitancy to pay these guys multi-year deals because you get guys that'll shut it down after they get paid. But this isn't working in this route either. This is not for the ultimate benefit of the team going in this 1-year deal approach either on that side of it. President says, B and his emotional takes is actually so funny to me. As long as it's entertaining, man. That's all I ask. As long as I'm being entertaining, not all, that's all I ask of myself. I hope I'm being entertaining no matter what I'm doing with it. And you can always count on the passion, President. Bronze sausage, if John is put on the hot seat of sorts, what does that mean for McDonald? I don't think it means a lot in the near future for him, Bronze. If you do get a new general manager in here, a new general manager's going to sooner or later want to find their own head coach. But McDonald's on a 5-year contract. They'll have 4 years left after this deal. I would tend to believe that, he's not really in threat of there being a problem with him here, especially having what I think be a successful opening year, at least for another couple of years. I also am not sure that John's really on the hot seat. Remember the Aldon Smith debacle, says Mimi? Yep, there's another guy. 1-year deal. Miss Fitz says, I like this segment. Hey, folks, what's up, man? Thank you. Long live Akeem says, yep, Sharp's pass pro is going to have to be on point in this game too. Yeah. You're going to have to be right on your reads. You're going to be doing all that homework here this week because Flores will run a lot of mixed boxes, mixed fronts at you. He doesn't make it easy at all. Deviant, so in other words, he keeps signing placeholders for cheap, like swiping a card before you know it, and the balance is filled up with no wiggle room. Yeah. He's essentially doing this thing where on the surface of a DVN, he'd say, well, I'm putting players on prove-it deals. You want players on prove-it contracts. That's how you want them. You want them hungry, chasing that next contract. And in theory, it would work like that. But in practicality, it hasn't worked like that. And that's where the change has got to go from the process on his standpoint of it. You're going to have to just pay for quality is what you're actually going to have to do. But there's also a part of this where I think beyond the surface of what he's trying to do, there's also what this allows him to do is never really make a commitment. It's like year by year, he gets to kind of reset the marker to how he wants it rather than locking in on a strategy and getting your players in place and rolling it out that way as I think so many other general managers would. And yeah, I think that's an apt way of putting it. Cap that year was $198 million in 2020. That's right. $50 million was no small amount, DVN. And you look at how he filled it up and how you could have filled it up alternatively. Again, in a year where you were not rebuilding, you were not trying to just get to an ascending point. You were technically supposed to be contending at that point. Those were moves to take you over the top. Henry Mars, are opponents taking advantage of Grubb's rookie mistakes? Grubb's first year in the NFL? I think to a small degree, but it's not like they're doing anything that's really brilliant or complicated. You know, Grubb has a leaning in with him from a standpoint of what he's trying to do right now is attack deep and throw deep and get longer developing routes going. So a lot of times teams are just falling into a lot of deep zones. And then they're mixing that up with some of those stack boxes and some of the heavy blitzes. So it's sort of, you're getting the counter between those two. So there's a little bit of that. I think some of this is in Grubb's play where it's just a lack of commitment to the running game at times, getting too pass happy, which then allows defenses to pin their ears back as pass rushers and that make you very, very predictable. I think he's done things too, like I've heard, you know, when we're under center, that it's always play action, that you never run the ball. When you put Geno under center, this is what I've read about. I can't say that I've matched this up exactly what I've seen on tape, but that sounds about right. And if that's the case, that you're being predictive, also pre-snapping what you're showing, which is a lot of what we've seen as well. So I think there is some of that there inherently in what we're seeing from Grubb. Yeah. Deviant says, like, dang, that's a quarter of the cap, laughing out loud. It was a lot, and he's done this recently a bit. Same thing kind of happened this offseason where is the Jerome Baker a lot of money? No. Is the Tyrell Dodson deal a lot of money? No. Is Laken Tomlinson deal a lot of money? No. Is the Rashawn Jenkins money a lot of deal? Even the Noah Fant deal. The Noah Fant deal is essentially a 1-year deal. You're going to cut out from under this contract and you'll save some money this year, but it was basically a 1-year deal because you're not signing him to a 3 or a 4-year contract. And so it's again where there's that pattern of behavior where I can show you from 2020 and 21 to 22, 23, 20, that you get much of the kind of the same way here being trotted out over and over again. And it just hasn't worked. It really hasn't. Monsoon, we get through to get Justin Fields or Donald. We might do something like that, Monsoon. I was talking about some possibilities of this offseason and approach, and pivoting to a different quarterback is a way they could look to go. That's for sure. Jeffrey Ball, thank you for your 5th super chat on the channel, man. Appreciate that support as well as being a member of the channel. Thank you for that. Agree. NBA is unwatchable. Baseball not far off. So glad analytics in the NFL seems limited to 2-point conversions and 4th downs. Boy, am I ever the same way, Jeffrey, in that analytics is definitely seemingly kind of at times screwed the pooch with both NBA and baseball, and agreed on your agreeance. So agreed with your takes on that as well, being that I watch the NBA right now and it is unwatchable. It's a game that I just don't recognize. And I understand that everybody wants to tell you these guys are more skillful than ever before, but it just looks like launch city every time I watch an NBA game. It just, how can I launch a 3-pointer and not even a good 3-point shot, falling off balance, guy with a hand in the face. Everybody thinks they're Steph Curry, and they're not. In baseball, the 3 good conclusions that have taken over the sport: strikeout, walk, or a home run. I mean, is there anything more depressing or wild to watch than to watch an organization like the Mariners, who decide that they want to have the most pitcher-friendly park in all of baseball, that then would require you to play small ball, run the bases, have speed, who then build a lineup year after year of strikeout, right-handed power hitters who don't hit to contact and who don't have a lot of speed. But that's where you are with baseball too as well now at this point. Small ball, thing of the past. Don't do that. Don't bunt anymore. Don't manufacture runs anymore. Swing for the fences. And makes the game boring as hell. So boring. I think basketball is going to have to do something too as well. I don't think that this keeps going this way. That the sport's going to endure, where people are just going to love for the next 20 years watching players throw 83-point shots at a basketball game. Hopefully analytics don't seep in that way, Jeffrey, to football in the same way. Little Dallas Cowboy says, fear of sleep by the Strokes. It's a real thing. Somnophobia. Sounds like a real thing. Phoebe, I'm sorry, B. I just keep hearing Fire John talk all week and I don't like it. No, I get it, Phoebe. I'm not in that lane of it. So when it comes to John, that's that nuanced place that we can get to where there's criticism to be handed to him. But it's not also to say that's also that it's drawn to such an extreme place that he deserves to be, let go. Not at all. And as I've said on this, and I still believe this, that if there was a hot seat to be there for John, if he was really that close to this, where we're landing at this offseason where the team has gotten 8 or 9 or 10 wins, but because the seat was already hot on him leading into the year, now that's not good enough. Well, you should have just let him go, as I've said many times over, when Carroll left then, if that was going to be the case. You should have just hit the whole reset button on if you were really that close to it. And so you didn't. You stayed with him. So I think you got to ride this thing out and let this play out and see if he can fix it. Henry Mars, Draymond Jones was a multi-year deal. Don't we wish it was a 1-year deal? Yeah. When it comes to Draymond Jones, it's one that definitely is one that hasn't worked out. It's been one of the few multi-year deals that you've actually handed out in recent years. And you also haven't exactly, it's like you've done on a lot of other deals at times, from Jamal Adams to Jimmy Graham. You brought a guy in who was doing one thing with one team and you loved what he did with that one team, Henry. And then you've moved him to a different position from what he did with that one team that caused you to give him that big money deal in the first place. And so that's a bit of this puzzle as well, is your usage of the guy. And I'm not happy with the deal on the whole, but there's going to be some misses in spending. That's not the case too, where it's going to be perfect going down the line of spending money on multi-deals in the open market. But it's to say, look, what's the better way to go on this? Go with 4 1-year deals, approve it deals, or go try to find the guy you can target out there. And I think at this point, I'd more like to try to go find the target guy, miss or not, contract by contract, than take these 1-year flyer deals, which just don't seem to work like you think they theoretically would from a John Schneider perspective. DVN says, once LeBron, KD, Curry retire, it's over. Ratings will go to the ground. It's already going down a lot. It will indeed. I mean, it's just not entertaining. It's just not entertaining. And we'll see if the NBA does something about this, but it's not good. I think you're right. You lose some of these the star power on it, and that thing's really going to suffer, because that's a league that's really driven by its star power too. Femi, looked like a good deal of time. Yeah, I'm not going to undertake the Draymond deal as being you missed, but it wasn't a bad deal. It wasn't bad money given up necessarily as far as you overspent. There's some issues with it and how you used him, but I'm still okay with going down that road instead. I wouldn't rake him on that one, Phoebe, in John's case necessarily. Bronze, it sometimes feels like Grubb and McDonald aren't communicating. You hear Mike hammer on run the ball, and we end up with too many shotgun situations. Agreed. I think that there's some indicator here from McDonald being less than happy at the situation, Bronze, being that he's brought this up a couple of times of being frustrated with the lack of commitment to running the ball. And it's one of the places I say where there may be some real truth to the fact that they might look to move on, and that these guys just aren't on the same page in that way. We'll see. Monsoon, will Noah Fant get released this offseason? Yeah. You're paying money for production you're not getting from the position for him. Maybe that's not all his fault, but it doesn't make sense to keep dumping more money into it. Misfit, ownership needs to flow the cashola to give multi-year deals or win in free agency with quality savings. The dead money from Adams and Diggs is something John had to work around. True. Sean, I enjoyed watching the Songs play at Mercer Arena when I was a kid. Me too, man. That was a fun place to go check out a game. Long the King, hey B, Sexy Chains Reek versus JJ matchup makes me nervous. Yeah, it's got a few people nervous in the chat tonight, man. JJ's good. He's not good. He's great. He's legitimately maybe the best receiver in the sport right now. Gibson says M's hitting woes make their games almost unwatchable. Yeah, it's been wild to watch him build lineups with these guys that strike out so very much. And it's part of it's just the game, that three conclusions part of the game where these hitters are brought up to swing from their heels and, 2 strikes, try to go the other way, try to get some good contact on the barrel of the bat. No. I'm just going to swing with all of the force of 1,000 gods behind me. And if I strike out, so what? But it's been wild to watch the front office build this lineup year after year in just insane ways where they act like they're in a bandbox at times with how they're building their lineups. Monsoon, Addison, Jefferson going to be a nightmare for us. They might give us some problems, man. That's for sure. Ran the Cat, I'm glad I don't watch baseball. Seems like being a Mims fan is tough. I bailed out at this last year. I said, I'm not doing it. I realized where this thing was going, and it was tough to watch Mims fans have to really go through it last year with some of them really coming to some of that same conclusions I was at the start of the year. But yeah, I feel for him, man. Because that's a fan base in the Mariner fan base locally that, for as many issues as we have talking about the Seahawks team and not having our fans show up in that stadium, Mariner fans show up every single year. And they haven't won for a great deal of time. And every year you can count on it. Every year they're in there. It's a faithful group. They deserve to be rewarded. Ray Kemp says the NBA has become pregame shoot-arounds. That's right. Let's just throw it up. Used to run actual plays. You used to actually have passing and ball movement, and there used to be defense. You could play some physicality out there. You had to have some heart. You can just walk around there and flop over onto your face if somebody slightly barely touched you. It's a soft league. Misfit says they best be working on an extension for Ernest Jones. They better be. They better be. They better be. Saying this earlier on this. Oh, where is that? I thought I had that up there. I did drop a couple days ago, folks. If you get a chance, check out my Ernest Jones video I dropped a couple days ago on the channel. I'm hoping that they do get him onto an extension, though, Misfit. High priority. Northwest 360, Luke Ness Monster. First time subscribed to Hawks Nest. Hello from Yakima, Washington. Well, what's up, my man? Northwest 360. I appreciate you tuning in from Yakima. Hope everything's going well out there in the middle of the state. You're not getting inundated with too much blustery winds and cold weather this winter, and I hope you have a great Christmas. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you for doing that. Welcome on in. Phoebe says, doesn't help when NBA players sit out 40-plus games of the year. No, it does not. No, it does not. It's another part that doesn't help. Part of that softness of it. And boy, you can really hear the older NBA players lament some of that attitude of the younger players to sit out all of those games without being injured. Northwest 360 says the Seahawks need the mentality they had after the Cyclone. They do. Got to tap back into that Northwest. And it did seem like there was a little bit of a loss with both sides of the ball of that kind of that intense nature that they had that they were bringing the past couple of weeks. And hard to say why it was, especially being Northwest. It was on prime time, and you would expect that that'd be the type of game you wouldn't have any hard time getting up for. But if you're going to beat this Minnesota Viking team, a team that's really, truly in competition for the number 1 seed in the NFC West, or the NFC, sorry, then you're going to have to bring your A game. You're going to have to bring an A level of intensity to the game. And if you do anything short of that, they will walk all over you at home. So hopefully they can, man. Hopefully they can. Devian says, McDonald's body language, you can tell he hates the offensive play calling. Every cut to Mike, he's looking at the camera with the... Yeah, he's got a couple of odd looks they've caught him on after even touchdowns, after the Charbonnet touchdown, where he's just like... It was a weird look on his face. Hand Grenade, did Mike hire Grubb? He did. But they also had never worked together before. So, you might hire a guy and not know if you're going to be on the same page with him once you get to live action and the bolts are being fired and you're going, we're not on the same page here. It's hard to predict that if you've not had the working relationship before. And the hard part with McDonald in that situation was there wasn't a lot of great coordinators out there and available at that moment. So you were sort of picking over secondhand scraps a little bit. You were hoping big with Grubb. You're hoping to hit the moon with him as far as a shot. But there was also a lot of bust potential on that move as well going with him. Brian says, I can't stand baseball, so I don't have a dog in the fight. Yeah, they made it easy not to like it, the game here. Monsoon, I live in the Tri-Cities, and we haven't had an ounce of snow yet. Oh, no, it's always a good winter if you can get to mid-December without any snow. The wind gusts are blowing 50 miles an hour a day. That's cold. Austin White, Grubb was always a risk. We should take a shot next year with a proven NFL play caller. I'm over the Grubb experiment. And for God's sake, get an offensive line someone can work with. Well, I think we're all on the same page on this one, Austin. I think many Hawk fans have their different outlooks of how to build a team or what the right route is to go. I think every Seahawk fan to a man and woman right now is saying, look, priority number one this offseason has got to be the offensive line. You've got to make this the centerpiece of what you do and how you operate going forward, because this thing has been just atrocious beyond all repair almost for the season. I mean, you've tried everything you can and there's no answers, and it's just awful as can be. It's as bad a situation as you'll find in the league. So before even what you do with the offensive coordinator, Austin, I think you got to make this your priority point number one and really hammer it. Hammer it in a way where you're course correcting, where you've got to overcorrect for years of ineptitude, years of neglect. Overcorrect, in my opinion. Look at this Packer team here that just played us. That Packer team, that offensive line, which is rounding into shape and which is playing really well this year right now, right? And they're rocking and rolling. What do I say about this line? I say take it past the bare minimum line. Take it past we got our starter here, starter there, starter here, starter here, starter here. Okay, we're done. A little bit of depth, but then we're done. No, hammer it. Hammer it. You come back in this offseason and you might say, okay, well, we'll go look at the left guard, but then we'll just count on Christian Haynes or Bradford to be the guy at right guard, or Saatoa. One of those three guys will become the guy at guard. No, hammer it. So that Packer team that had that offensive line out there performing well like they did against us in our own house, they're down Jordan Morgan. They're down their second round pick, who they hoped was going to be an immediate starter for them out there this year. But don't miss a beat. Why? Because they don't just take the offensive line and take it to the bare minimum. Take it to that line and stop. They take it past the line. They understand the power of having a true offensive line as a strength. And I certainly think that there's a possibility here, Austin, on moving off of Grubb. I think if you're going to move off of Grubb, you're going to move for something that's more certain in what you're getting from an offensive coordinator's standpoint of things. A guy that's been in the league, that knows how to call games in this league, less of a question mark in that area. I don't know which way it'll go on that for sure, but I could certainly see the team pivoting in that direction instead. And it would make sense. It doesn't seem completely like McDonald and Grubb are exactly on the same page with how Grubb is running that offense. Bronze says maybe Mike McDaniel at offensive coordinator. I don't know how long he has as a head coach in Miami. I don't either. Maybe a possibility. Maybe a possibility there, Bronze Sausage. Certainly. I don't think he's getting a head coaching job if he moves on from Miami. So he is probably one of those OC types that's not getting a job back that's then on the market to go and grab maybe. So it might be the direction that they do go there. He'd be one of those guys. Brian Dable type or a Stefanski type coming out of the Browns. Greg says the death of the NBA started when they removed the big men physicality so international players could have more success, and the NBA could become an international game without positions. Yeah, the international guys struggled with some of the physicality of the sport, and I think that drew a lot of it. They wanted to make the game international and more pliable for the international market, and you're going to take the physicality when you did that. And yeah, I agree. I think this started with taking out the physicality. You started yourself down the line of an outcome that we're arriving at today, and that you're taking the game in a certain way. And that it's like, if you're going to make the game in football all about offense, well, then you change the game substantially in how it's plays and how it's viewed and the entertainment value of it, because it's a little bit like extra points at that time. Playing defense is sort of just like not a real thing. It's just who can be the better offense rather than who can actually play defense. And that's not what the game's about. Just like that's not the game of basketball should be about. Brian says, an OC moving from college to NFL isn't a breeze. You got to know what you've got to work with, and you especially got to know pro defenses and all the looks they give you. Grubb was pass happy at UW because he could afford to be. Not quite as easy in the NFL. Yeah, well said. Well said. DVN, hey B, a little fun. If you could build an offensive line this offseason, how would you go about it? Anybody you got eyes on in free agency or the draft? I would probably do something along the lines of I would probably go out there and sign a major free agent for either guard position. The two guys that I think stand out to me are Tevin Jenkins or Trey Smith. You could just go big. You could just go completely big and sign both Tevin Jenkins and Trey Smith. You want to talk about fixing the offensive line in a major way at that point, look out. But if you want to go with Tevin Jenkins, and then as far as finding another guard in free agency, probably be hard to do. I might look to see if I can make a trade for somebody out there on the other side of it. But then I would probably make 2 of my first 3 picks in the draft also offensive line in general terms. Most of the interior offensive linemen I've looked at so far in this draft are pretty enticing. I think that this looks a little bit better as far as some of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th roundish interior offensive linemen that'll be available. And so a guy like Booker out of Alabama at left guard, if you didn't get a Tevin Jenkins, that would certainly be an option. But I think the key here is you sign a guy, a real major guy in free agency, then you come back in the draft and then you hammer it in the draft as well, and hammer it with real high picks. When you went first round, when you went 2 of 3 picks in your first 3 rounds a couple of years ago with Lucas and Cross, it worked out pretty well for you. Let's go down the same line again. 1st and 3rd round. First round, get your left guard. 3rd round, come back and take a center. Sign a Tevin Jenkins or a Trey Smith. You're in good shape. Little Dallas Cowboy Brandon, what's your favorite color? I like red when I'm drunk, black when I'm sober, which is never. Sorry, not sorry. I don't know, maybe blue. I don't have a strong feeling on a color I prefer over one or the other. Northwest, they need more veterinary status on the office. They like the right choice with Big Len Williams. I think you got spell corrected there in Northwest. I'm not sure it was trying to say there, man. B, look at Will Levis. The Titans O-line is horrible. I mean, how is it supposed to be developed? Same thing is happening with CJ, but the narratives is slump and bust for them both. Yep. You don't get the benefit of the doubt, Phoebe. That's that modern outlook at the quarterback position and the view of it being very limited and the scope of it being that, you sink or swim on your own. The supporting cast around you has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. I disagree with this heartily, but that is the way that it exists out there now. That's for sure. All right. Well, we've reached 3 hours here on the chat. And so we'll go ahead and start to put a bit of a button on this as I've got to wrap this up. If you can for me, guys, please do hit that like button for me. It helps this channel out. It's a major thing. I know it's this thing I ask every time, but it does help me show up on these searches. Lets YouTube know, hey, show this guy's content. This is the type of stuff you want to show to other Hawk fans that are looking for stuff, trying to make sense of the season. So please hit that like button. A couple of other notes. I want to thank the sponsor of the show, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy right now sponsoring this show now through the end of the year. Hey, have you lost your fantasy this year? Are you out? Are you out of the playoffs? Well, go win yourself some more money now. Go get yourself a little bit of pride back this year as you can finish out this season. Get yourself into a weekly fantasy contest. Go head-to-head with other fans. Go win money against other fans, not the house. And use my code today, NEST, where they will match you 2 for 1, $100 down, $50 back, $200 down, $100 back, $1,000 down, $500 back. So they use my code today, NEST, as they will match you 2 to 1 on those deposits. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the show. There are limitations that do apply in the state of Washington, where if you are in Washington and you're just in your own network, you're not going to be able to probably use the app. But if you are in the casino in the state of Washington, you could use the app in full and get that 2-for-1 match. You just got to be on their circuit, in their system, in their little Faraday cage within those casinos. But luckily, there's a lot of casinos in the state of Washington. So a lot of opportunity to use this fantasy app. Build your parlays, build up your players at the end of the year, pair it together with the NBA. Go get some money today. But thank you, Underdog Fantasy, for sponsoring the show. Also, 2 other notes. If you're not aware with me on this, I've been doing a weekly show over on the NFC West Roundtable. It's a whole separate channel. We're doing 2 shows a week over on that channel, and I will be continuing to do that, so please do check that on that side of it. And we've got the Hawks Nest Clips channel. That's going to be clips of these live stream shows, clipped up, just little key-in moments. Going to be doing some other extra clips throughout the offseason over there. A lot of prospect breakdown film stuff that's going to be going down on that channel at the Hawks Nest Clips channel here. So if you aren't subbed up to that, there's going to be a lot of extra content going over to that side of it. And like I said, even right now, a lot of these live stream shows are getting clipped up and putting a lot of clips over on that side of it. I think we've got well over 300-400 videos that I posted since we started to really hammer that about last February or so. So we'll keep the Clips channel going as well in addition to this and keep that pumping. If you guys got any last little questions, let's pop on in on that. Northwest said they need, I meant offensive line. I was like, veterinary, Big Williams. I was like thinking Northwest. I was like, is that because he's Big Cat? You're saying veterinarian, but I know I've been doing this long enough. I can tell when the spell check gets you, when the spell autocorrect gets you. And offensive line's what you need. I'm okay with you making this the centerpiece point of what you do this offseason and overcorrecting it, overhammering it, doing almost too much. Having us sit there and go, boy, I don't know if we needed all of that. Do we need that extra guard? Do we really need that guy, that extra good quality guard? I feel like this is almost too much. I want to be in that kind of position this offseason with that offensive line. And when you look at the defense, you've got a defense that's looks, I know we've had some bad moments, but it does look like it rounds into shape pretty well. You re-sign Ernest Jones. You probably bring back Josh Jobe. Is there more talent you want to add to it? Sure. But is there real major points that you have to hit like this offensive line there? No, it's like nose tackle and maybe an edge rusher. You feel pretty good about the rest of what you got. So you can take that microscope and lock in on this line in that way and make it that priority and make it that resource dump as well, where it's not just a priority, but you can afford to put all this stuff into it as you want to. But it just takes the onus of the team being willing to do it too, because Northwest, when we look at this offensive line right now, John's spending as less money on this offensive line right now this year as anybody in the NFL. You are getting what you paid for. And this is where this comes back to. It isn't always so terribly complicated. When you're going to be cheap on a position, when you're going to be butt cheap on a position, it's not a shocker then when that positional group completely collapses, is it? Versus when you actually put the investment into it and try to build it into something. Little Dallas Cowboy, everyone here is my friend. Thank you, Seattle. Hey, thank you, Little Dallas Cowboy. I appreciate you jumping on in here. I think Frederick's probably pretty happily retired there, Cowboy. I think Martin's going to be joining him on that too. Luke, Pumpkin finally showed up right at the end, man. Gibson bringing in a quality offensive coordinator with experience, then adding a free agent offensive line and addressing it additionally with some picks would be ideal for me. I'd be perfectly at ease and happy taking that same kind of approach, Gibson. Yes, sir. Brian E. Hawks Nest, I'm grateful for your time since I had to break my grandson's jazz concert. Worth it, but glad you were still here when I got back. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you checking it out. Come back. Hopefully it was a great jazz concert. Hope you had a good one out there. I do appreciate you watching, man, and come back on in. Phoebe, one more question, B. Do you have any shows in the offseason we should look forward to? I'm still kind of trying to develop my offseason plan of attack, Phoebe. I'm not sure of the route exactly to take on this one. I tried to fill a little bit more up with the interviews last year in like June, and do like almost an interview once every couple of days. I ended up losing subscribers for that month, even though we did so many of those shows. So it was kind of like an indication to me that maybe the people didn't want that stuff as much. I'd really like to be able to bring in more people here to the channel on the outside in that do other channels and stuff. I just want to make sure that when I do it, that we're not, losing subscribers by doing it. So there's probably going to be a bit of that. But I'm still sort of developing the plan, to be honest with you. I'm kind of trying to find the way to attack it in a way, Feed Me, where it's, going to be engaging for people where there's a pull from people to disengage out once you get into the offseason, and understandably so. I completely get people going, okay, well, we're off season, nothing's going on. You know, what's there to talk about? So I'm kind of trying to turn that over a little bit. I also think I'm going to be doing a lot of streaming over on the video game side of it, as there's going to be some video games that come out, and probably just doing more of the Twitch type thing, you know. Big Docs, Brandon, do we need an extra guard? Too funny. I'll take extras this year. After watching this offensive line, give me the extras. Take it past that line. Gibson offensive line, obvious glaring issues, but the line's still the issues like in the last several seasons. Yeah, you've had time to correct this course, Gibson. You know, John keeps facing this every year, and it's been bad prior years. It's at its worst this year, but it's been very close to this worst state in recent seasons. And he's been begrudgingly going in the direction of willing to address it, but he's getting slapped in the face with it now. It's been one of those things that's been kind of an issue that's maybe he's got scratching at the back of his skull, but now it's slapping you right in the face on a game-by-game basis. And if you're going to ignore it now, it again shows almost an ineptitude for your ability as a general manager if you can't do it this offseason. I mean, it is a hole in your game. Bron Sausage, have a great night yourself, man. Thank you. Appreciate all the questions and the back and forth and the perspective as well. Always love where you guys are coming from. Little Dallas Cowboy, Frederick was the best center, the best. He was great. Little Dallas Cowboy, where'd you get your mic, Brandon? It looks like at least $1,000. I think it's only about $300, $350. It's a Shure SMB. And I just got it off of an Amazon. They sell them there. These are the kind of mics that, you know, you have where you can get it in like 1970s and they'll last you for 40 years if you treat them right. They're just solidly built, good quality internals and all of that. Highly recommended as a microphone. There's secondary things you got to buy with it. Little Dallas Cowboy, you know, you got to get these cloud lifters, and they're dB deficient, so you have to constantly kind of overcome the lack of natural juice they have to make them. But once you get them right, they sound pretty good. I'm not even maxing mine out. I would like a soundboard where I could make it sound real juicy, you know. Get my voice real down deep for you guys like this, you know. Seahawks got good team right now going down, you know. Get that real milky kind of milky tones. Greg, my problem with Grubb is he seems to have no counters for how teams are guarding DK since he returned from injury, and instead of making adjustments, he's just spamming JSN the ball. Where's the genius OC? I haven't seen a lot of representations of that, Greg. I would say that there's a few different other things on top of this. Lack of motion at times, lack of pre-shifts and adjusts that you saw more of at UW, lack of trick plays, lack of commitment to the running game, and you're right about DK. I think some of this too is with Greg is with JSN's ascent. Some of what you were doing at the forefront early season with DK was moving him to the slot, keeping him in motion. And now it seems like JSN's kind of taken over that role in the offense, understandably so because he's a natural slot, but now you've got DK back to out there as an X on the outside and out there back to being bracketed in his coverages post-snap time and time again. Addicted Brandon, maybe some deep dive film cut-ups of your favorite and overhyped 2025 draft candidates. When you do film highlights, I think it really brings your points across. Well, thank you, Addicted. I think that's where I'm kind of leaning and going to your point on that. So that's where I've been worried in the past about doing that on the main channel with those kind of clips, because people will sometimes be just on hawk content. They don't want any of the draft content. That's where I want to have that clips channel rolling like we have, where we've got almost 2,000 subscribers over there. We've got a good 300-400 videos kind of in the bankment. And now when I go over there, if I drive more to doing that on some of these videos, I don't have to worry as much about the retention aspect where, oh, I'm going to post this video and somebody's going to unsubscribe because it's draft and they're not interested in the draft. Whereas over there, I won't care. I'm more of kind of like, this is my sacred cow. I want to keep us here where we're at. Over there, it's going to be more about just loading it up as far as film goes over there, you know? And I think that's what I'm going to do is kind of player by player it a little bit. Some of it being probably off these live stream shows and looking at prospects and then cutting them up individually to over there. But doing it kind of by that method, I think that'll be a bit at the forefront of what we'll do this off season. Just try to kind of maximize as much out and put as much kind of content as I can, over onto that clip side of things. Little Dallas Cowboy, good Mike. Thank you for the info. For sure, man. Cowboy, if you get it, you want to get it you want the cloud lifter, and I got a Scarlet SMB, DB increaser thing. So you need kind of a 3-stack on it. But if you're looking to get a mic, this is a great one to do. Weston says SM7DB has the cloud lifter built in. That's good, Weston. I'm glad they did that because I tell you what, it is a pain in the butt. You got to overcome 40 dB to get it to a place where people can just hear you. Like it comes out the box and you turn it on. It's like, and it's got like a little buzz as well in addition. So it's good to hear that they're building into it. I'll probably get that one as my next one eventually when I do upgrade, though I do like this mic quite a bit. I'm very happy with it. Around the cut, I have a AKG mic. Love it. More of a studio mic, though. Yeah, there's big mics for ones. There's ones for best for the singing. There's the best for the podcasting. There's the best for the on the go. Do you want a USB one? A lot of different options. TikTok, Brandon, you need a soundboard so you can sound like Steve Rabel. Holy catfish. I do got to get a soundboard. I've been a little bit torn on them because they're just so damn, to get the right one and the good one, it's expensive as hell. It's like $700 or something. So it's on the list of something I'm going to get eventually. I'd love to have it too for like the, especially get the buttons so you can do the sound drops. So I don't have to like search it out and where's it at? Okay, let me hit where's my Seahawks chant? Okay, there's my Seahawks chant. Okay, we got the Seahawks chant. Can you hear it? Versus being able to just go, boom, hit the Seahawks chant button and bang, it goes. So that's the next probably major. It's either going to be that for the channel. I'm going to either get a soundboard or we're going to get like a neon backing here behind me instead of the flag. I think I got to clean up a little bit of the backdrop a bit, simplify it down. It's getting maybe a little cluttered. Brian TheSeahawksNest, got to go work on your Sam Elliott voice. I know. We'll get deep down in that voice. Those soundboards, you don't even have to do it though. You can get the adjustments. I've seen some guys that talk like I'm talking to you right now, and they get the soundboards on there, and it gets very smoky. You get that mahogany voice. Thank you, Brandon. Also, if you do chop ups of draft candidates, maybe John Schneider will stumble upon it for some food for thought. Funny enough, man, one of my favorite points of the year was when I ran into John at training camp. And that one of my mind-blowing spots of training camp for me was running into John. I was staying at the hotel there in training camp, and he was aware of my stuff. So he was like, he complimented. He's like, man, you got that algorithm mastered. I was like, wait, so you've seen my stuff then? So you watch my stuff then? So yeah, pretty cool. Dylan, Brando, you think we should trade K9 this offseason? If so, what package would you want for him? Yeah, I am in favor at this point of moving K9. I think this has been an experiment. And you've tried to do something different. You've tried to go a different direction than the rest of the NFL as far as the proven rule of thumb when it comes to running backs, and it's not worked out in your favor. So I think, yeah, you've got to move him, in my opinion. One thing that stands out to me and what you could maybe do here is if you wanted to go and look for a guy who is maybe an edge, really one of these really upper crust edges out there. I keep thinking back, and I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, Dylan, but I keep thinking back to like a Micah Parsons type guy or a Myles Garrett type guy, to where you can come back to those teams and you can say, okay, here's a first round pick, and here's a K9, and here's a Derek Hall, and you're giving him the first round, and you're giving him a package of picks, and maybe you can kind of offload to then return back better. But let's just say that you could only get like a third round pick back, or even maybe a late second round pick back for a Kenneth. I'd still take that at that point because I'm not going to pay him. And I think this is one of those places to offload assets from one to the other. I can rock with Charbonnet, McIntosh, and Holani next year, and I think they'll be plenty good enough for us if we have a line that's better rebuilt in front of them. And hey, you go make a trade for a late third round pick. Now can you package 2 late third round picks to move up into the high second round and then go get yourself a legitimately upper crust level talent offensive lineman? That's another way you could go with it too, Dylan. I'm good either way there, but yeah, I think that's the way I would go with it. Yeah. Dick to Brandon. Yep, I remember meeting you in Seattle. You said John was aware of you. Super cool. Yeah, it was pretty. It definitely made the head grow a little bit when he brought up, because I was just like, hey man, I do this stuff. I think he's like, I know who you are. What's up, buddy? Brandon Kane is Jerry Jones. What about Jerry Jones? I didn't make it, but I hope I'll make a training camp next season. I hope I'm gonna get to training camp too, man. Me as well. I had my fun with that experience. I'd like to do it again if I can pull it off. Nick to Brandon, great point. Your Clips channel might be the perfect spot. I think it will be. people get a little bit squirrely with that subscribe button on or off. And over there, I just don't care if it would go on or off, because that would just be, I look at the Clips channel as that's a faithful channel. That's a channel of, if you're just coming to sub just to that channel or not, I don't care. This is for the people that watch my main channel that are going to love this kind of extra content put out. That's really at the forefront of why I want to do it. And I think that'll be where I lean, especially for off season, where you have people with a little bit more of a penchant, I feel like, to kind of unsubscribe up until they get back to the season, and sometimes subscribe up them when they hit the season. Amazing Mario Brothers. Yo, B, how much purple can we expect to see in the stands this Sunday in the House of Horrors known as Lumen Field? A strong 29.5%. No, 27.5%, Mario Brothers. A little bit more than a fourth of the crowd, unfortunately. Nick Docs, Brandon, our soundboard's really expensive if you steal one. Bad joke. Yeah, they've got the good ones are legit, man. There are some cheap options, but then you hear about the bad reports on them and the issues and troubleshooting you have to do with them. It's to avoid the troubleshooting, to know it works and works well. You got to pay the high price. You got to pay that high price. Little Dallas Cowboys, how would Jerry sound arguing with Watkins about signing Dak? Jerry, you can't do it. No, your team, they're not good enough. Not now, not soon. Wait, Jerry, I'm telling you now, wait. Christopher, you listen to me now, okay? You act. I general manage, okay? You're an actor. I'm a general manager, okay? There's two different points of what we're doing here, all right? I'm an expert. You're an amateur. I'm just saying, you give him $60 million. What do you got left for anybody? Who? You gonna pay? I don't know. Nobody. You suck. Loses. But you got Dak. Why? Because he's a good quarterback, okay? I know my quarterbacks, and I've seen him naked, all right? He's a solid 8.25 inches, which for a quarterback, 8.5 is what you're looking at offensive line, but quarterback, 8.25. That's good numbers there, okay? That's $60 million number right there. If you say so, Jerry, I'm just warning you. You warn, all right? I'm going to warn you about the Super Bowl title we're going to win in 2024, 2025 with Dak. It's a good deal. I know we should move K9, but man, I love him. But it's for the best. I love him too. I'm not anti-K9. It has nothing to do with him as a player or his ability, or the move would not be based on that at all. And that part makes it sad, unfortunately, but these are what we would call the rules of the road. Predicted, Brandon, just trade K9 for a guard, just a plain effing guard, laughing out loud, or a second or third round for a guard. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Little Dallas Cowboys, excellent interpretation. Thank you, sir. Anytime, Little Dallas Cowboy. Anytime. Anytime. All right, we're going to wrap it up on that note, folks. I said a half hour ago I was going to wrap it up. We still kept going. You guys keep me in the train, and I really appreciate you guys for that. Every time I go live, man, eyes blink. I'm like, man, gosh, we got 3.5 hours. I intended to go quick today, and every time you guys get me pulled in, you just pull me in like a tractor beam. I love it. I love what I get to do here, man. Even in a tough kind of game like we had to this last year, and sometimes some of the tough games we've had to turn over, I got to give you guys credit. It's been nothing but enjoyable to be able to turn this over with you guys in the chat and to discuss this stuff. And the troll rates have been down, and we've been able to just have these really great discussions where we talk about this team and all the considerations of what's next for this team, what the team needs to do as we go forward. I really want to thank you guys for what has been just a great year on all accounts, from where we've been from a growth standpoint, your support, which allows me to stay locked into being able to do this full time and stay in this kind of mode of things, but also the discourse. This can sometimes be very tough when we're turning over different subjects that people feel passionate about and coming to some kind of common ground, and or just be able to disagree respectfully. It's something that gets talked about, saying that a lot, and that doesn't happen a lot in these kind of online discourses. But again, in the channel here today, I see, and I've seen it many times over throughout this season, we've been able to stay in that kind of mode of things, and that's really good to see from my fellow Seahawks faithful. I really appreciate you guys for that. So thank you for all of your support. Thank you for making this a great time for me every time I go live. But thank you as well as always being committed to making the discourse in a place of respectability and understanding that we are all wanting the same thing for this team. We may have different approaches and ideas for how to get there, but we all want to see a championship. We all want to see this team great. We're all part of the same family, and that's never to be forgotten. I thank you guys today for hitting that like button, for watching up throughout the day as you guys have today, as you guys show up every time I go live without fail, win, lose, or draw. I can always Count on you guys. We're coming back tomorrow with a couple of shows. So we've got 12 o'clock, the B&B show with Brendan as we make some sense of this last game and look forward to this Viking game and previewing that. We've then got in the afternoon, hopefully, we'll see with some of the behind enemy lines guys. It's always a little bit hard with them at times on necessarily being for sure that they're going to show up. So hopefully these guys do. But we got a Minnesota Vikings insider, a couple of insiders in here that we're going to have from their Vikings channel over on the channel about 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And then we will try to do the Thursday night football game if I've got any gas left in the tank, but it's set to be a pretty long doggone day. So we'll have to see on that. If we don't get a Thursday night member show tomorrow done because of the behind enemy lines thing, we'll definitely get a member show on Saturday or something. You know, little makeup kind of show if we can on that. Thank you guys for watching today. Please, again, hit that like button if you could. Sub on up as we're trying to get up over 20,000 subscribers here. We are almost 1,000 away from that 19,500 mark. When we get to that mark, I'm going to do a 24-hour stream for charity. 24 hours for St. Jude here. Already trying to set up some of what we're going to plan for that stream. So please do sub up if you're not already to help us get a little bit closer to that mark. Thank you guys for watching today. I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys. You're amazing. Always amazing. Thank you to all the people with all of the support. God's gang, Feed Me More Seahawks multiple times over. Long live the King. Jordan, John Naylor multiple times over. Jordan, appreciate you. Jeffrey Thistle, One Airborne. Long live the King again, man. Thank you guys all for all that. Jeffrey Thistle, appreciate you guys. You're amazing, but you're always amazing. Zach Mule, you just became a member of the channel here. I thank you as well for that. Members of the channel, every Monday I get the Monday PFF scores out to you into your community post. Thursday, we've got the Thursday night football games. And at the end of the month, we do a call-in show. So keep an eye on your community post if you're a member of the channel for those benefits as they will continue to expand as we do get into this offseason and into the future. But thank you, Zach. You're the man for doing that. Back in less than 24 hours and with a game on deck like this that's for our season. We're fighting it out with no more room for error. I shouldn't have to remind you that it's on the line, that this is the now, that you better be tapped in, that you better be ready to go. But just in case you're not, let me do so right now. Don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.